Full Force, Joburg. Oh, look out, we're here and poised to get choosing. It's a card art battle best described as amusing. Road Pig didn't make it, which is kind of confusing, but man, we have some beauty, so it's not all about losing. The team is so global and the quality's dope, and we got so many pieces of solid art to scope. And of course we're talking art, not artichokes, with Steve, Paul, Rob, Cooge and Chris on the tropes. Will that charbroil blaze a clear path to glory? Will old what's his name tell a much different story? Can I get some of that delicious Sub-Zero ice cream, and his coils or Doom's face just a little too gory? Can Verona lead the way when it comes to the crunch? And will the Black Spider ever rendezvous for a lunch? In space, nobody can hear payload scream, and can Kangol deliver a knockout kangaroo punch? Vintage or modern, it's so hard to surmise when you look at the clear pain behind Guillotine's eyes. Hallow Point and Crosshair are picking the spots, and we have a battle over which card has the most dramatic skies. With Flag and the Night Stalkers, it's the battle of commanders. Verona and Darklon for the battle of the standers. Worms and Munitia pushing buttons for the win, but only we can decide who truly becomes the main champion.
Yo, Joburg, everyone. You're listening to a special mission Joint Forces broadcast brought to you by GI Joburg and Full Force. I'm Steve, but I'm not alone. Repping Full Force, we have none other than the one, the only Chris McLeod.
What? Sorry, hi, how's it going?
And of course, we've got the usual Joburg suspects in the mix. Introduce yourselves, boys.
Paul from the No Coast.
Rob from the South Coast.
Of course, you got Cujo on the West Coast, ready to appreciate art.
Excellent.
Yep, we're here to bring you the second half of our figure subscription service card art battle. Insert explosion here.
There are going to be so many explosions.
It is unavoidable. It is your destiny.
Oh, and by the way, I'll be at the new movie.
Oh my goodness, they're milking it for all it's worth.
Star Wars: The Rise of Cobra.
No one ever truly
Setting up the
dies.
next trilogy.
We never made any major mistakes. We never really painted ourselves into any corners. We can take it all back. Oh, Jesus.
You never saw him die. He just fell down an endless pit.
Am I right
Yeah.
in
Just saying.
saying that in the expanded universe before it was made kind of not canon, but then some of it was made canon, that Palpatine was like a clone and he kind of came back
Yes.
in the comics, right?
It was in the
the books.
Dark Empire saga.
Cool.
When Luke kind of like pretended to go to the dark side.
Yeah.
Because Palpatine had like a whole factory of clones. And he just like, he survived that last battle. He transferred his evil consciousness into another body. So yes, in the Dark Wars comics, he did survive.
Awesome.
So it's not a new idea.
Do you think they're going to go with that whole premise?
I really thought that's what they were going to go with originally when they started doing these Disney films, and they're disappointed by not going that route.
But they have
'Cause
now.
they have now, 3 films later, they're finally ready for the next trilogy.
Mara Jade will turn up and Quinlan Voss.
Luke will be alive enough to bone her? Really?
Ghosts, Force ghosts, sexual intercourse?
Yeah,
That sounds
exactly.
awful.
When they close out on that sort of island, I was thinking like, that's where all the Jedi go, and they're, flesh and blood again. Like,
Yes.
nothing ever happened. Bam, the island of lost soul
The
Jedi.
Declorians just kind of, they kind of like coalesce on their island, and you become a real body again if you want to.
What?
Wait, hang on,
Speaking of turning up,
is this the retro collection art battle, or is this the FSS art battle? I've already forgotten now.
Oh my goodness.
It's the FSS art battle.
We better put this train back on the tracks, boys, because we are here to talk about art and G.I. Joe art. And, I think the importance of art is somehow underplayed these days. These cynical days of, collectors going after plastic crack. Because back in the day when we had all the choice in the world in toy aisles, it really was the artwork that sold us the figure or vehicle. Am I not right?
It definitely helped. Yeah.
It added something.
And what is so fascinating about these figure subscription service artworks, particularly the second half, which we're dealing with in this recording, because we did the first 4 series, now we're doing the last 4, plus the final 12. What starts happening with more frequency is we start seeing artwork of characters that I have no prior experience of. Like, I've never owned a figure of them.
It's alright, that's why I'm here,
Very
Steve.
little grasp. Thank you, Chris. Mr. Current Events, Mr. Full Force. Guys, can we just have a round of applause for Full Force for always being on top of everything GI Joe and fan related. Thank you.
I was going to say
The audience.
I was going to say even if you hadn't clapped, then I would have put a sound effect of like a huge crowd going nuts.
The audience.
So
Sorry, you're dead, Chris. This is once again one of those times where I am laughing all the way to the
bank.
Not bank. I don't know where I'm going with that, but basically, this episode is in your hands, man. If you are listening to this on Podbean or Stitcher or one of those avenues, I'm going to tell you right now, stop, head over to YouTube and Google us. I mean, search us, whatever. Find this episode in the YouTube presentation because, yeah, you're only getting half the battle.
Nice.
If you.
You're only getting half force, aren't you?
The force is half mass.
You want full force, exactly.
But we have had a few requests. I think we had one guy the other day. He posted like, "Oh, it would have been awesome if you made this a YouTube episode because he would have loved to have seen the artworks we were talking about with regards to Road Pig."
Lucky you, my favorite dude. It is on YouTube, and you're watching it right now.
This one will
That's
be
why
up.
we're announcing it up front, guys. Check us out on YouTube. You can find us either on the Full Force channel or GI Joburg channel. Hey man, we don't mind. We ain't splitting hairs about YouTube revenue. What's that?
We only get like 10 hits and views anyway, so it's. I don't think there's going to be any worry of us taking any of your pie in the YouTube department.
I love pie.
I still haven't seen a cent from YouTube. But anyways, let's not get onto that. Let's talk about artwork. Bam! Do you leave a little marker there just to kind of?
I'm kind of
find
doing
out?
it, yeah. Like mentally, I'm editing as we go. I'm thinking, right, I'm cutting all that out. I'm not having any of that crap
Exactly.
in there. No, I'm kidding.
Let's lose the fluff. Let's talk the arts. Guys, round 1, figure subscription service plus final 12 card art battle. We had to open this one up with a blast from the past and an exquisite artwork, which is a throwback, it's something entirely unique and something I'd never seen before this card started making the rounds. It's the Black Spider Rendezvous versus another thing that I had no awareness of is artwork from a man very close and near and dear to all of us. It's Guillotine.
Oof. And they're both masked, by the way, I'm just saying.
Right. Well, I'll start off then, guys, because we've done this before the show, and even though it sounds smoother, I've just ruined it by telling everyone that that's what's happening. So, starting with Black Spider Rendezvous. Now, this was an interesting one for me. I'll just do a very brief history of this particular thing. The Adventure Team, GI Joe, 1975, they brought out it was like an Adventure Team kind of costume for GI Joe, for the Adventure Team, called Black Widow Rendezvous in 1975. It was also released in 1976, so it was still on store shelves at that time. And then in, I think, 2002, Timeless Collection, they brought out this again, but they kind of released it with a 12-inch figure as well, and it was called Black Spider Rendezvous. So this is basically an homage. This new version is an homage to all of those kind of releases previously. So it takes basically the original art as it was and reuses it again. Now, I think it's actually the art from the Timeless Collection version, which is a little bit kind of brighter, newer, and touched up. So it's kind of like, it's just basically using that like for like. And with that particular figure, I wasn't really that interested until I did a video on it for Diagnosticators Reviews and the Full Force YouTube channel. And shameless plug, go watch it now, for the actual figures.
Buddy, I wasn't that interested until I heard your review.
Oh,
so,
thank you.
Yeah. It's a very, very well-warranted shameless plug.
Oh, but I love you. So, I love all of you so much. And so we go into, when I kind of did the research on that and, started seeing where it came from and what the actual costume was referring to, I was like, oh, actually, this is pretty cool. So when it first got revealed at JoeCon, which I was actually second row back watching the screen as it was coming through, and also some other things came through that we're not going to talk about today because it was just embarrassing and whatever. So, so basically that pops up and I was kind of looking at it like, yeah, okay, that's all right. It's just whatever. But then when I did the research for it and found out, oh yeah, it actually was released in 1975. It has this kind of history. And the fact that the actual storyline behind it is that the Black Widow, or Black Spider in this case now, is a female operative or so we are led to believe. We don't know the exact idea of this person. We just know that they're called the Black Widow or the Black Spider. And G.I. Joe Colton is getting his gear on to go and meet her for this kind of, I think it's like a information sharing, or he's picking something up. And then in that particular storyline, we're also introduced to Coils O'Doom, which we'll see later in the episode. But in terms of what the point is here, is I had no care or any real knowledge about this figure, and now all of a sudden it's like it means more to me. And now when I got it in hand, I was like, actually, this figure's really cool, and the card art is gorgeous, and there's that, I don't know, real retro feel to it, with it being taken straight from the original design and just literally plonked on the card. So in terms of Black Spider Rendezvous, it's a really good, awesome kind of homage. And obviously it's not new art, but it's nice to see it, brought into the into the current, into the modern. So that's a really good high point for me about Black Spider Rendezvous. Now, on the flip side, we have Guillotine. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit of info, a fun fact about this particular figure, which you'll hate me for, and you'll hate this fact that this fact exists. Obviously, Adam Riches did the art for this particular figure, and I'm actually quite glad it made it into this particular card art battle, because if you look closely at the eyes on this card, they're mine.
Hey!
He used my face. Like, I took a bunch of... I'll put the pictures that I sent him on my... actually sent him to do reference for. And the thing is, I didn't know what it was for. He just messaged me and said, I need reference pictures. Do this pose. And he just kind of described it to me. And he said, I want you to look really angry.
You realize the angle of the head in the guillotine art matches the angle your head is pulling in your Skype profile picture.
It's not that
I'm
picture.
Staring at.
It's not.
But it's. I'm looking at them side by side, and I'm like, yeah, I'm seeing it definitely. Your head's sort of cocked the same way.
Yeah. So I've got like so anyway, I send him like a bunch of reference pictures, like selfies, effectively, of me pulling this angry face, and didn't know any more about it. And then later down the line, he when the guillotine art was revealed by the club, he's like, did you notice it? And I'm like, notice what? And he's like, guillotine. I'm like, oh, you son of a bee. So that was a really nice kind of, surprise. And the fact that I know it's only my eyes, because what he did was he drew my face, I think, in full, and then he put the helmet over the top of it. So effectively, on the painting, my head does exist in it. It's just one of those things where it's been painted over like a Tiger Force repaint. So yeah,
it could have been worse. He could have said that he used your face for Coils of Doom.
Road Pig.
There you go.
I knew I'd get that in there at some point. I must say, I'm so upset.
I'm surprised
that Road
it took
Pig
so long.
Yeah, I know. I'm so upset. Sonic Fighters Road Pig, I'm so gutted, is not in this list. But these are all amazing artworks. And anyway, Guillotine, I really, really love it for obviously all those reasons. And Guillotine edges it for me for vanity. So I'm calling it now.
Mm-hmm. Next up on the mic, we got my man Cujo.
Sometimes you get too close to the music, I wish you would have withheld that fact about the eyes.
I'm so sorry.
That's all good. Let's see. First, if you're just picking us up, we all know Riches, the artist behind most of this work. I don't do roasting, but I do critical eyeing. So let's see. I think the only issue I have here, I like the skull because you got to have as much danger in the picture as you can. That was a nice rendering. He's too like he needs to be cut. That guy's leading eels. He's got to be lethal.
I'm not that cut though.
Yeah. Hit the gym. So you're going to be running with Slaughter in a couple months.
That's true.
Let's see. The next one is Black Spider Rendezvous. The Lego man, as it were. I do like the baby blue. That holds the picture for me. He has a beard. Dude looks rugged. His eyes have seen some stuff. I think that's a scar. He's going to take it for me just because the knives, honestly. What's his hands doing? He's got daggers. This pulls you in. He's in danger. I like this pick. So Guillotine is nice, and I do have some personal history with that art. but I'm gonna go with Black Spider on this one.
I love how you have a sort of Hispanic way of saying guillotine. Guillotine. Guillermo del Toro.
Guillotine.
When in Rome, I suppose. Yeah.
Right on. Paul, give us some more expansion on the art merits of these two pieces, my man.
Why did these two have to be a head-to-head? Because I feel bad now.
Bro, they're all going to be tough calls. This is a sort of a distillation of like the best of the best of the best.
If you're worried that you're going to be upsetting me because my eyes are involved in this artwork, then don't.
No, I'm just worried. I just don't want to upset Adam Riches because I know how much effort and how much
he has so many pieces of art in this list. I wouldn't worry about it at all.
No, it's just that Guillotine seems quite special. Like he got to actually draw that from scratch, and you can see that this pose. I don't recall seeing this pose for this character at all any time before in any of the other FSS artworks or anything that Adam Riches has done. So this to me, it just it comes across as it's very his own thing, which is really awesome. I'm talking about Guillotine, just for our listeners' sake. So I love it, and it's creepy. I don't know whose eyes he used, but I get the serious creepy pedo vibe from this whole.
That's getting cut.
Wow,
that's definitely getting cut out. I'm kidding.
No, I'm totally kidding. It was actually cool to get some insight there. About the eyes, because there is an intensity there, which is great. It's cool because there's so much intensity and it's just behind the mask and it's kind of creepy.
What do you think I was doing to get that intense eye look?
I don't know. It looks like you're trying to solve a Rubik's Cube. I'm not sure.
I was trying to pass a Rubik's Cube. All the reference pictures I sent him were me in the toilet. So he's got the full images of those, which is great.
Wow. You're in the potty, yeah. No, I love this artwork. There's just a lot of really good stuff going for it. I don't know how it went with the art direction and all that, but I really would have loved it a little bit more if he was allowed to put a texture over it, which I think he would probably agree with if he heard me.
Yeah.
Because I think he wanted to. But I think I understand with packaging art, they always like to try and keep things super neat and clean. Yeah, see Mike Thompson's art if you want to see what I mean. But this Black Spider Rendezvous artwork is just absolutely gorgeous. And maybe it's just because I have a strong affinity for old school pulp style artwork from the 60s and 70s. I just love seeing the brushwork. That was done with either gouache or maybe watercolor, maybe acrylic, but I think it's more gouache. And I just looked at it and I'm just the strokes are there. And
gouache.
Yeah. It just tells a lot. All the strokes and things tell a lot in the story. There's a lot of drama that comes across. And I, for one, am a big fan of that. And I cannot actually fault Adam Riches' Guillotine artwork, aside from the fact that I think his art director didn't allow him to put in too much texture or whatever, or at least the art direction for this whole line is very clean. And I really wish it wasn't Guillotine against Black Spider, because Black Spider, for me, is going to get it. Because it's stunning. I love the drama. I love the emotion that's in there. It's very unusual for a GI Joe packaging to not have that explosion behind it. There's a lot of cool things going on for it. Yeah, that's going to totally get my vote. But I don't want to say, but there's nothing wrong with the Guillotine. It's more of a personal preference thing. I think the Guillotine artwork is stunning. So if you're listening to this, I don't hate your artwork, man. I totally get it. I wish this was not up against it, but it is. And old school is cool, man. I'm sorry. Also, I wish I had chosen the Black Spider Rendezvous. I didn't know it was eligible for this card battle. I was twice shy in my selections. But anyway, yes. So Paul gives it 1 for Black Spider Rendezvous.
You're lucky it came up then, I guess. Definitely when I saw these artworks, especially the ones based off, I suppose, the older properties, I was really blown away. Black Spider Rendezvous was one of my choices, if I remember correctly. And also, thanks, Chris, for that history lesson. If you hadn't said that, I would have just been his name's Black Widow. And I'm so excited to meet this cool figure. But
I prefer that, honestly.
The entire figure is just named after the fact that he's going to go see someone named the Black Spider or the Black Widow. I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, think about it a little bit further, and you realize that actually they're selling you GI Joe.
Yeah.
If you buy this figure, if there's one figure you buy, make it this one, because this is Joe Colton,
This
man.
is GI Joe.
Colton,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, this is actually quite a tough matchup. It's Lego Man versus Chris himself. Like who wins, Lego or Chris? I don't know. I can't decide.
If I stand on a piece of Lego, then Lego wins.
Every time.
Every time.
Lego always wins.
God, this is tough. But like, yes, there's a lot of character and a lot of like stuff going on in the Black Rendezvous one. But I really enjoy the menace. Like Chris, like whatever you did to get that face, it really worked. It looks fantastic.
It was the Taco Bell. I'm sure it was Taco Bell the night before.
No, because that would have made it come out easy, and I wouldn't have pulled any face. It would have been it would have been something that stodged me up a little bit,
Like a 3-inch by 3-inch by 3-inch plastic cube made of smaller cubes.
I'm trying to pass it, yeah.
And I like the menace of the character, and he's very pared down. Like he's not overly designed. Like he has like the helmet and he has the cool like sword. I want this figure, and I really enjoy the artwork, so I'm gonna go with Guillotine.
How disco is that sword though?
It's amazing, dude.
Like it's like it's on the line between being extremely kitsch and extremely awesome. It's like the kind of thing that you would want to own when you're going through your teenage metal phase.
Definitely.
Well, Paul, you talk about the textures, being slightly less than what you would ultimately want for a finished artwork. But I'd say that skull is an absolute triumph. The skull on the sort of the bone blade that Chris himself is clutching very tightly, that is exquisite.
If you say clutching my bone any more,
Chris has a good bone. He's holding a good bone there.
I just would like to mention that's a very small skull. So I mean, this guy's a child killer. I'm just putting that out there. That is what that small skull tells me.
Or a borrower.
Yeah.
A really big borrower. Can I just say I'm not a paedophile and I'm not a child killer? I just want to put that out there. So far,
your eyes were just the inspiration for this piece.
just want to make that clear.
Fun fact, if we're not joking about it, it's probably true. So if we're joking about it, it's probably not true.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, God, that's getting you deeper into shit. Sorry.
Paradox.
Stephen, you have the casting vote here, don't you?
Swing vote. Jeez, the pressure. I didn't honestly think it'd be lumped on my shoulders because, honestly, I mean, no disrespect to the artwork, I thought it would be a landslide in favor of Black Spider simply because it is so unique. And it is worth keeping in the running as a result. And since the power now falls to me, I think I am going to do that because of Adam's contributions to this reverent list of artworks. I'd say Guillotine is perhaps one of the less dynamic ones.
Yeah.
The pose is quite static. It is very true to the action figure. I don't think I would ever find any of my usual criticism that the artwork kind of embellishes too much here or there. Like it is like parts choices are apparent. The secondary gear on the figure is apparent in the artwork. And I'm a big fan of that. I like artwork that is selling me the toy and selling it well, which is exactly what this artwork does. But I'm kind of the narrative guy, I suppose, in this mix. And the evocative nature of the artwork from the 70s, that it kind of sells you a scenario.
Yeah.
The fact that it's not doing the typical GI Joe, bam, here I am, here are all my accessories, I'm attacking the camera with an explosion behind me. That is so fresh to me. It's funny that I'm talking about an artwork that is the oldest one in this list, and I'm seeing it with fresh eyes and regarding it with sort of a fresh take. But it is so fresh to me. And you touched on all sort of the art touches that I, in my very layperson way also appreciate, Paul. The fact that you can see brush strokes, you can see the color palettes, moving from a light white to a very deep blue on his Lego Man helmet. It's gorgeous, and it does deserve to stay in the fight. So
one more thing I'd like to say about Black Spider as well is the fact that the artwork is a lot smaller than you'd expect, because it's kind of like on a very small part of the left-hand side of a window box display package, tucked away, almost like a little hidden gem as well. So it's kind of like originally it was like, a lot smaller and to the left hand side and not really as prominent as we want it to be, like on a regular carded figure.
Well, that makes it doubly impressive that such great care was put into this artwork. Incredible. It makes round 2. Let's continue with Coils of Doom, the other half to the Black Spider Rendezvous throwback, versus Charbroil. That's a childhood favorite of mine. Let's see how he fares. First up to the mic, it's my man Cujo.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, let's do this guy one more time. I'm looking at Coils of Doom. First thing, thank you for keeping that gun barrel on the page. The sky, that's got end times written all over it, so I like it. A little bit of impressionism, I'll take it. The face, he's like, I gotta face the public, put some makeup on me. I like it. That eye is borderline hideous. I'll take it. And you know what? I don't even need to talk about Charbroil, but let's see. If you got a snake like at that angle, I know Snake Plissken can see that. So going to Charbroil. Charbroil's a tough one to beat because I'm a sucker for 3 layers. You know, you got the flame up front, you got the flame behind him. But this artwork is probably going to move on for me. It's a classic. Plus, it sells the insanity, and that mask rocks in the art. I'll take it. I'll burn Coils to the ground. Let's take Charbroil. What say you?
Whoa! Upsets right out the gate.
And I think I'm next to comment on some Cujo-ness of the artworkness. Okay, I'm going to start with the Great Flame War on Charbroil. No. Charbroil, the artwork is an awesome artwork. Everything that Cujo just said was a very dynamic piece. That intensity in his face. He's definitely not Blowtorch. I think he's a pyromaniac. He's just got that look in his face. He's just intense. And if you guys get a chance to, and if our listeners, as our listeners are listening to me carrying on about this, I'm sure that we will flash some images of the original card art, and you can actually see the subtle differences between the FSS one and the original vintage card. Both are awesome. I think it's Adam who did this, or whoever did this. Props to them, because to try and copy that style, it's never really easy.
Lanny would have done this one, not Adam. Cool. So Lanny Lantham is the guy that does the kind of when they retouch some of the old original art, he'll do those, and Adam does the straight up original stuff, his own stuff.
Okay, so this artwork, I mean, I was gonna put it in my list as well originally, and I dig it. But this Coils of Doom, like until you spoke about it earlier, I had no idea who this was. But I've got to say, like, for everything that I couldn't give points to Adam Riches for before on the Guillotine, I want to give him all of the points now for this, because he's been able to do something that is more painterly. And I think it's difficult for me to say if this was digital or not, or partially digital.
It's fully painted.
It's fully painted, yeah, because that's the vibe I'm getting from it as well. And it's cool to see that. And that face, that likeness is fantastic. And, you know, a lot of people won't believe you when you tell them this, but actually real paint is easier than digital paint a lot of the times. It's just that digital paint is easier to fix. I mean, I don't know where he pulled the likeness from, but for me, it looks like Linus from Lost.
Yeah.
And it's got a bit of that look to it. Yeah. And I love it. And I love the, like, sort of lighting and all of that's going on for it. My knee-jerk reaction when I saw this originally was like, no, I'm not going to go for it. But when put up against Charbroil, I definitely think it should take it. It's just, it shows a lot of technical skill. It's a lot of technical skill that I enjoy. And in this battle, I'm trying to celebrate more original artworks over retouched originals. And that's not because the retouched original is bad. It's just that I'd like to celebrate the newer artworks more, because the originals have definitely had their time in the sun. So mine, I'm going to give it to Coils of Doom.
And we're deadlocked, 1 vote each. Well, let's keep this interesting. Rob, what say you, my brother?
Well, I think Lanny's done an amazing job at retouching this artwork. Because, I mean, like Stephen said with the previous matchup, the art reflects the parts of the actual figure. And I think it's really cool that they made the effort to kind of update the look, but still keep it the same pose. And, I mean, that's incredible. I really do appreciate that they put that effort into that. You know, they didn't just slap the old artwork and you go, oh, but he doesn't have the same, you know, chest piece. He doesn't have the same, you know, like the gun doesn't look the same. No, they went to that effort to actually make it look new, but still old. And I like that both of these pieces are very, like, as Cujo said, almost like apocalyptic. I mean, there's a fire in both of them. I mean, the front and back of Charbroil, but also the sky is on fire. And wow, Adam, if you're listening to this piece is amazing. I really like it. And I like that he was given the chance to actually fill up the entire card art, which is also what I liked about these pieces, kind of aping, I suppose, the style of the older figures like Black Spider Rendezvous, is that the art actually gets to fill up the entire card. And it really is absolutely amazing. Yeah, if it wasn't apparent, I'm going for Coils of Doom. I think it's so gorgeous. Wow.
And I suppose I'm next. Guys, of these two artworks, the one hits my nostalgia button really hard. It is flicking the bean, man. So
Charbroil is flicking a bean.
Indeed, it's red hot.
Eating it up.
So Coils of Doom has the odds stacked against it for me, and I can't divorce my personal bias, because when I look at Charbroil's eyes,
They're not mine.
they're not. Yeah, you would have been all of about 7 years old.
Thanks.
So you wouldn't be on the giving end, you'd be on the receiving end.
We've all been there.
So, geez. And while I should be annoyed that no Charbroil figure has ever had the pipes accurate to the artwork, it's funny that they weren't able to do that. But in the same sense, I'm glad they didn't, because, pipes that you find on eels or on the classic wetsuit, it adds a lot of chunk onto the front of the helmet, which Charbroil's action figure helmet never had. Anyways, we're talking about the art. Man, the kind of tones that you see in the metallic parts make this a far cooler artwork than the action figure could ever hope to be. Unless they were actually going to chrome up that action figure and then on top of the chrome put some kind of paint wash and also make the red parts of the helmet translucent. I mean, this artwork elevated the action figure so much so that I, as a very, very discerning 5-year-old, picked a flamethrower trooper over anything else I could have bought that year. So I'm going to keep this interesting, and I'm going to give a vote to Charbroil, which then gives all the power.
Hey,
My man Chris.
Awesome.
Take us home, Chris.
Okay, so a couple of things I should probably mention about Coils of Doom. So when he was announced at JoeCon, a lot of people were scratching their heads like, well, who? Obviously, there was a lot of colour, like the green, the dark green, the light green, and then his red hair with the little white bits on the side, kind of Fantastic Four style, kind of were pointing us towards another figure that came out in the Night Force set, and that is the female Crimson Asp figure. Now, it turns out that Coils of Doom is the father to Crimson Asp, who was in that, I think it was called Nocturnal Fire, the box set. And so we've got this kind of like family tie-in. The name was kind of like a riff, a bit of an in-joke with the club, staff. They were basically homaging a few things. One was a 1975 Adventure Team release again. It's come up again. And I suppose obviously the fact that they were homaging, it makes sense they homaged 75 because that's when we first saw Black Spider Rendezvous, or Black Widow Rendezvous as it was known back then. So obviously these two figures kind of go together in a sense. And this set that they're homaging is a set called Trapped in Coils of Doom, featuring two authentic Adventure Team vehicles, and was basically a little boat and a little kind of buggy that kind of looks a little bit like Roller from Transformers. And obviously there's a huge snake in there too in this set. So obviously there's this thing of like linking him almost to this. And funnily enough, I should point out that the background that Adam painted for Coils of Doom on this artwork, which is gorgeous, seems to kind of does take a little bit of inspiration, not copied, but definitely inspiration in the colours of that particular box art for Trapped in the Coils of Doom. Red kind of night sky, and then kind of like green water and green trees and stuff. So there's like a lot of similar colour use going on here. So you can see the homage immediately. The tie-in with Crimson Asp was really cool, and that made it interesting to me as a character and a figure. And again, it's tying it in with the Venture Team and kind of the 12-inch side of things. So that's pretty cool too. And I love homages. Like I can't get enough of them. I think they're great. So any homage, any interest that crops up like this, it instantly kind of raises the profile of that figure. In terms of the artwork, Adam just knocked it out of the park. Like, it is gorgeous, like painted. Again, he won't mind me saying this, but he has all of this kind of preparation work beforehand of different poses and positions, and holding the snake and maybe having it wrapped around him or something, or kind of just poking up in the corner. But all these different like ideas of how he wanted it to look. And obviously the figure head sculpt takes from Cesspool. And what impressed me about not only the artwork and the figure, but the fact that the figure looks nothing like Cesspool with that repaint of the hair. Just doing that really is enough to kind of really separate him from Cesspool. And the artwork couldn't be any different facially. So I think that he's done a good job on the art to separate those two characters, and then also the club have done a really good job, with the paint work on the actual figure. So all in all, it's a beautiful piece of art. With Charbroil, like, I don't have grievances with it. I just find the touch-up of the original, like, obviously they've got to tie it in to look like the action figure. So effectively what it does is it highlights how many differences there are between this modern version of the figure compared to the original. Now, I'm one of those people that does prefer to have their figure almost an updated but almost carbon copy of the original. So, where they can copy as much as they can from the original onto a modern design, then I'm all for it. But obviously what the club were kind of, hamstrung a little bit here, because they had to use parts that already existed. There aren't many parts Charbroil's very unique. There's nothing like him out there. So finding parts to kind of match is really weird. And the fact they went with just a GI Joe Retaliation Trooper, almost like neck to toe, I was almost a little bit like, okay. And it's really just almost like the colour that separates the two figures. And I know we're talking about the artwork here, but it kind of links to it. So looking at the artwork side by side, there are so many differences. And I absolutely love that original Charbroil art. Like, it was a figure that I owned as a child. And it was very striking and a beautiful kind of piece of work. I'm not saying the artwork that's been touched up isn't. It's actually what I think, there's elements of it are actually even better than before. But if you look at the differences, there are so many. Like, the pipe actually runs into the front of the gun on the original, and on the new modern version it's running out the back because it's a different piece. The backpack's different, the chest piece is different. There are no shoulder pads because of that secondary. It doesn't have them. There were kind of patches on the arms that are now these pockets. You have a shorter glove type situation going on, and therefore they've had to fill in like fake extra material on the wrists. Then there's an element that you can see more of the waist on the new version, and you can there's all these different things going on. The fire seems to be identical. They've stuck very close to the shape of the fire coming out of his actual flamethrower. But obviously, because they were able to tool a helmet from the original, you've got like effectively a perfect helmet representation on there. So I don't really know where I'm going with this, other than I feel stronger towards Coils O'Doom, and this is not because I'm friends with Adam and I feel at all. It's just I just feel stronger towards that as an original piece of art, as opposed to the touched up version for Charbroil. That isn't going to be the case like every time, but in this particular sense, it edges it out for me. So I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to put Coils O'Doom through. I'm sorry.
Well, you don't
need
have
to
to
apologize for that,
happy.
man. Jinx.
Burn him.
Yeah, look, to be honest, I'm pretty stoked as well, because I want to get the opportunity to sing Coils O'Doom's praises, which is precisely why I said nothing about it in this round. I kind of had a feeling we'd be seeing him again.
You read my mind.
All right. Master strategist. Let's do our third matchup. It's another Adam Riches up against an old schooler. We've got Payload versus General Flag. And the first person to step to the mic will be Paul.
Yeah! Okay, so this is actually one of the artworks that I chose for this list that I wanted to have voted in. because when I was Googling all of these, it actually stood out to me. I didn't even know it was an FSS artwork. I was just like, oh, that looks pretty interesting, because I recognized, and that would be Payload. Payload popped out in a big way. Now, I'm a big fan. I like the Data Viper, which is where a lot of Payload's parts come from. And I think it's cool to see those parts reused, but it's also cool to see them in a different context. And I think they make a lot more sense as equipment or space equipment, as opposed to their sort of ground-based flying a drone kind of thing. Which, I mean, we all know, like, a guy who's piloting a drone is still going to be inside a vehicle, at least in my opinion, for now. General Flag is great. I actually think the little touches put on General Flag that are quite smart were putting on the gun holster. That was awesome. I don't think... I want to look at our comparisons again, but I don't think there's much that was...
The jacket's completely different.
Yes, it is completely different now that I look at it. Yeah, to suit the toy more, which is a good thing. Chris mentioned earlier that he's one of those guys who likes his retooled modern era retooled vintage figures to look as much like their vintage counterparts as possible. Well, I'm one of those people as well. It drives me crazy when there isn't enough of that connection. And this artwork is cool because it pays respect to the toy. It says, hey, this is what's in the box, kids. It's great. But my money is going for Payload here, dude. This Payload is awesome. I love it. I love that you can't see his face properly. There's like an air of mystery. It's creepy. It's well painted. Painting anything white is difficult to do. Adam did a good job here. I think, he definitely got a lot of the structure and everything about it down. And he's really sold the figure to me. I mean, if I could get FSS stuff and I was subscribed, obviously I'd get this figure, normally. But every now and then I see an FSS figure where I go, I'm going to try and make a plan to get one of those when I'm rich. And this is definitely one of them. So it's cool to see that. And the artwork definitely helps sell it in a big way. So yeah, I'm Payload all the way.
My goodness, Paul, that's crazy. All the way with Payload. And it's a fantastic piece of art. It feels so real. Like it really looks like a proper space dude. He's out there. He's got his missiles on his shoulders. It's brilliant. And General Flag, I think this is a really good update of the original artwork. I always enjoyed the original artwork. I thought he just looked wild and crazy. It's like he was the general who went out into the field, kind of like Hawk does, but I mean, they kind of pushed that a bit more with Flag, I think, at least at the time. He was like, those crazy eyes and that mouth, and he's like,
Father, I will avenge you.
But thanks for getting me the job in the first place.
I would never have risen to this rank if you hadn't have died. They said they could only have one flag as a general.
They were wrong.
Dead wrong. Dead wrong.
And I think it's a really cool update. I think it's fantastic that I imagine it would have been Lanny again who updated the artwork. It looks really good, and it kind of shows off the changes that they had to do to the figure as well. And it looks absolutely fantastic. And Payload, he's in space, like you get that feeling, the real realism of he even just the pose, it feels like he's weightless. He is in space. But nostalgia-wise, General Flag takes it for me because I remember seeing this guy on the shelves, and I always thought he was a really cool-looking figure, and he just feels like a general, and he feels awesome. And I've really enjoyed this artwork always, and I think it's well updated in this case. So yeah, that's me for Flag.
And this is me, Steve, for Payload.
Whoa.
Yeah, no, not backing down on this, guys. As far as fresh artwork is concerned, this goes places that very few have.
Good joke. Good reference.
Yeah.
I got it.
Well played.
It sounded like a Star Trek reference, but carry on.
Make it so.
Dudes, absolutely. No, look, it's super fresh. It's gorgeous. And yet, in spite of creating that star field, which, oh man, just I could stare at it for hours, there is still touches of the explosion effect. But it's like, it's like a star going supernova in the background or something. It's obscured. The narrative in this is strong. I will always wonder, however, how anyone sees clearly through that helmet, because doesn't it sort of split your vision into like 4 quadrants? Like, you're kind of bug-eyed with those kind of seams. Anyways, that's besides the point. That's the toy design at fault. The Data Viper parts, fantastic and well implemented into this artwork. White, as you say, Paul, is a tricky thing to get the kind of the various grades of and create depth on a white subject. And it's all present here, man. All those tones are incredible. The creases on the pants. I could gush more, but I don't need to. I'm hoping that this vote puts this artwork well on its way to being one of our finalists. Payload for the win.
Okay, so a couple of things. When this was revealed on the club website as the actual figure itself, I was a little disappointed because obviously they'd said that Payload was going to be involved in the lineup, and then you have that kind of couple of weeks wait or something for the actual visual to come through, and so obviously Payload gets the reveal, and I was kind of looking and going, I'm not sure I like that. And part of me, like I said before, I like my modern figures to really reflect the original vintage. That isn't always the case. Like, I loved Pursuit of Cobra. I think that's some of the best action figures that have ever been made, in all honesty.
Agreed.
But and obviously that is like updates of particular characters in much more modern designs. So I look at this particular Payload, as a Pursuit of Cobra upgrade or update. Now, I was disappointed at first, but having had having had Adam do the art and then getting the figure in hand, my God, I'm completely turned around on this. Like, as a figure, I think it's kind of inspired in a way what they did. I know Bobby Valor had a lot to do with the design on this particular one, or the build of it, I should say. And I think it's actually a really bloody good version of Payload now. Now, coming to the artwork, I do remember Adam telling me, again after the fact, after it had been revealed and everything, that he had been kind of umming and erring over the background, and he'd pressed the club to say, like, I really think he should have a star background. I think it would be like quite a cool effect, and it doesn't take away too much from what's been seen in the past. And they were kind of umming and erring over it, and then I think Adam did the art and sent it to them, and they were kind of sold on it, and they didn't change anything, so it was like, okay, it's gone through. So I was blown away when I saw it initially, because even the star background, you might think it's just a black background at first glance, but you've got like a real, like, it's almost like a black and a blue at odds with each other, almost like you see the blue kind of almost phasing through and making this kind of very like nebulous kind of looking sky, like it's quite brilliant. And like you say, the explosion going on, which is probably more likely a star behind him. Now, I did ask him, actually. I asked Adam at one point, I said, did you ever want to kind of include maybe the Defiant in the background and have him tethered to it or something? And he said he had gone through that as an idea and put it on like he does these kind of like little mini sketch cards to get an idea of where to position it on, on the backing card, and also different poses and different scenarios. And he kind of, obviously, once those go through, they get kind of signed off on, and the club will pick one and say, yeah, this is the one we want to go with. So in this particular case, they didn't want, I don't think they wanted the Defiant in there, because that's something they can't maybe provide as a vehicle or something along those lines. I'm not really sure the reasoning behind it, because we have seen Treadmark with standing on the back of his Desert Fox on card. So I was kind of thinking that even if it's just like an element of the Defiant sticking, just poking around the corner. But this, I believe, was going to be the first ever carded figure to have a background that wasn't the same as the rest of the release. And obviously that changed a little bit with the release of Coils O'Doom and Black Spider Rendezvous, because I believe due to the issues with getting the FSS 8 done, wasn't there some sort of crossover where the Final 12 kind of made it first? I can't remember what the ins and outs were, but I think this was supposed to be the first ever card to have like a different background to what we'd seen in the past. And it's kind of historic, and it's kind of brilliant, and the art's beautiful, and it's just fantastic. Now, General Flag, I have issues with this, mainly because I think the toy hinders the art in a sense, because if you look at the two in comparison at a glance, you might not think much. You might think, oh yeah, they're pretty much the same. But when I look at the new version, he looks like almost like a Nazi biker from Indiana Jones. Like he doesn't strike me as the general with the fleece collared kind of like Air Force kind of jacket style leather, flying jacket type thing that you see in the original. We've done an FSS 5 battle. And we completely ripped this idea off you guys, of course, and I think you know that anyway. But we did an FSS battle.
I think it's public domain, Chris.
But still,
to compare and contrast in the sort of the most obvious way, head to head. Come on.
But credit where credit's due.
Take a compliment.
All right. Heard it first on GI Joburg.
But so I stole that idea and then did it with this. But anyway, like when we've done that and it's in the can at the moment, but we're having issues trying to locate images for some of the figures because it seemed like everyone in the community stopped taking pictures of the figures like halfway through FSS 5, which is really weird.
And probably kept them on card.
Yeah.
Because they were like, holy shit, I'm paying a lot for these
probably
figures.
the case.
$60.
It's honestly probably the case. But so we're
the membership tax.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And it's like window tax here. But yeah, like they had this issue with we had this issue with the figure in that it doesn't really represent that original flag to me as much as I want it to. And the jacket, I think, has been used on so many different figures now that it kind of doesn't even look right to me. So for me, it's payload all the way, I'm afraid, and I've kind of ruined Cujo's swing, which he would have had at this point.
Well, I still want to hear Cujo's opinion about this.
We don't need any high drama yet. I mean, I echo that. Like, who stole Flag's butt? Where'd it go? The picture's a little out of proportion. I don't love payload. Just because the card art that resonates, you got to see some fear or some anger or some kind of emotion in that Matt or in his face. So I would have dialed in some kind of expression. I don't know. This figure, it's conflicting. With Data Viper, are those speakers or missiles? What's going on there? Do you guys know?
I believe they're missile launchers, but on payload it would be quite dangerous for him to use missiles in that situation because he would just start flipping round in a circle, wouldn't he? Like he would just like.
We've all seen Clooney, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
What is it? I forget the law of physics. The opposite and equal action or something along those lines. I forget what it is.
Newton's second
Every action
law?
has an opposite and equal reaction.
Thank you.
Was it his third law?
Thank you very much.
One of them.
It could be a bank of lights. If you want to go non-violence, could be like really, really strong floodlights. Bam.
Kind of makes me think that figure would be a great fit for. I don't even know why I remember this toy, but robotics. They had like this Tyrannix thing. It has a lot of angular design, so I think that would marry well. Yeah, I'll take payload. That's some nice art. I'll talk about it later.
Nice.
Bam. Payload progresses.
Blowing away
where
the competition.
no man has gone before. Now it's time for a bit of combat a little bit closer to home. Definitely terrestrial. Night Stalker's Commander versus Hollow Point. Hollow Point.
Lols.
And kicking this one off, we have Roberts.
Wow, this is interesting because I actually put both of these artworks onto my top 10. So I'm quite flabbergasted that they're both here and they're both fighting against each other.
Is the vaginal void enough to take it?
Vaginal void.
Yeah, it's something that cropped up in our sort of 80s, best of the 80s card art battles. Something that Baroness possesses. This kind of like, let's not make the groin area of a female artwork too prominent. So it just becomes this like black hole.
It's just something you're not supposed to notice. And definitely, I think you don't notice it that much here. I mean, she's kind of like got her leg raised. She's got the gun up there. And she's like, my eyes are up here, boys. And she's kind of got a Lego helmet going on there, with the blue. It's kind of cool. And a little bit of hair in the back there. And then you look at Hollow Point, and Hollow Point looks like a proper soldier. I mean, they've kitted him out really well. Except then he has that dopey, like, cap on with the... the fake GI Joe symbol on it, and it's like,
look, it's a throwback. It's a throwback. I mean, this was a built to rule figure. Like,
What is a
this
built
a
rule figure? Explain that to
rule.
me.
Oh, well, geez. In the sort of the early to mid noughties, the 2000s, the new sculpt era of GI Joe had a sort of a subset of like Lego style vehicles that all had included action figures that had studs on their
I remember
forearms.
those. Yes, yes.
Just in case you want to like have like a sort of a blocky piece of Lego stuck to your figure's forearms. I mean,
That's fascinating. So they
people do that.
so that so they made a version of him in this kind of Lego type thing, and then that look of him became an actual GI Joe figure.
Well, it's
Wow.
a viable character. I mean, if you are starved for fresh GI Joe blood, as it were, why not delve into built to rule? It's obscure
That's
enough,
fascinating.
and yet
Yeah,
you
definitely.
know, take away the studs, and
People must have
you
bought those things.
I have him.
Nice.
I have the original.
Well,
Aww.
there you go. There you go.
Did you enjoy
Man.
the Lego vehicle that came with him?
Yeah, he came with the Locust in 2003. I haven't actually opened this one. With the kind of 2003 to 2005 kind of era, it was all kind of bought after the fact and for really cheap, because all of the kind of, you know, like all of the kind of naughty
Nobody
kind of
wanted
stuff.
it.
Yeah, it was like, I suppose it was that way. Like kind of G.I. Joe versus Cobra was similar. There was like the real American Hero series and all that kind of stuff. There was like loads of it kind of floating about. Valor versus Venom, all of that kind of stuff. And it's just kind of flooded the market for years. Like, I know loads of kind of toy vendors that have just tons of this stuff knocking about.
Yeah, people complain
Well,
about
if I
the
ever
rising
want it.
prices of GI Joe, but there's one era of GI Joe whose prices have pretty much stayed the same. In fact, dwindled in value recently. Yeah.
Oh
So if
my
you want to
goodness.
kickstart your GI Joe collection, and you're not too picky, try the mid and early 2000s.
Don't mind your scales being weird. But actually, yeah, I think for me, Cobra Night Stalker Kumada is going to take it, because I think she is one of the only ladies in our top 10, or at least in our heads ups. And I think it's similar enough to Baroness, but also different. I think this outfit feels a lot more functional.
We
Obviously,
do have
it's essentially, we have Verona
and
I think.
Manisha as well. So we've got three.
And Manisha. Okay, cool. So we have some ladies in there. So I'm not just putting her through because she's a lady. Putting her through because I do actually appreciate her art a bit more. It feels more dynamic. She's kind of coming forward. And the outfit looks good. It looks good, but also functional. Yeah, so Cobra takes the day today for me. What do you think, Steve?
Cobra's going to take the day for me as well. Comparing these two artworks side by side, I feel like the one that feels more vintage to me, probably because it evokes Baroness a little bit, is the Cobra Night Stalker's Commander. The face on the artwork is incredible and gorgeous. I don't know whether to shoot her or fall in love. Wasn't that what one of the cops, the sort of renter-cop said?
Do you
in
not
Batman
tell
Returns?
people whose eyes those belong to?
Oh, damn.
Don't get people
Is
in
it your
trouble.
wife, Chris?
No, they're mine again.
Oh, zing.
I thought so.
So, I mean, if I force myself to then look at the action figure alongside, I'm like, wow, it just doesn't stack up. I'm talking about Night Stalker's Commander. Like, that head sculpt, I mean, it seems like the helmet is just, it's going to fly off her head. It just does not... Have you... do you have this figure, Chris?
I do, but it's still
Have you
in the
unleashed
package.
her?
But
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that the helmet, it doesn't stay on like super tight. No.
Oh man, that's such a shame, because the appeal of this figure or this design.
It's not the
and the
worst.
appeal of
It's
so
not the
many-
worst one though, Steve. It's that you can. It's not like you have to balance it, is what I'm saying. But it's not on there like Sergeant Slaughter's like hat that can like really force on there.
Right. Well, in snowboarding parlance of the sort of the late 2000s, anyone who wore their knitted beanie a little bit too high, leaving a gap between their goggles and their hairline, so you had this sort of like forehead gap. They were called
no.
gapers. And it was the sort of it was the mark of someone who like was a real amateur, like did not belong on the slopes with the locals.
That is a
'cause
hideous name, by the way.
Do
the
not
cool
Google
kids
search
all
that
have
term.
their beanies tucked in below the line of their goggles. And this is what I get from this is the disconnect between the artwork of Night Stalker's Commander and her gaper action figure alongside. So I love the artwork. I dislike the figure. And the opposite is true with Hollow Point, although I do really like the artwork. but I'm going to put through the woman because I like chicks.
I don't have an issue with female figures at all. I do kind of have an issue with the kind of female Cobra Troopers they keep bringing out with these, like, I don't know, I find it like very impractical. Like, it's if they're going to do the kind of Sunbow style where everyone's just wearing lycra effectively, then fair enough. But I kind of think that they should be a little bit more military, personally. And that's why I prefer, like, in terms of kind of female action figures, I love like Marauder Task Force and, you know, like even like the female figures that Boss Fight do. That kind of, to me, trumps a lot of these style of figures, because I just find them a little bit of a, I don't know, like a bit of a throwback, but in a bad way. And that's just me. I'm not having a go at any of you guys for like enjoying that figure or anything like that. I just personally, for me, I don't know. I find it a little bit like, you know, oh, okay, so we're doing a ultra sexy come hither kind of thing with this figure. Sure. You know, like it seems to be kind of
gratuitous.
No,
like Baroness.
It's not.
Baroness can wear a corset, but you know the rank and file should be practical.
Not necessarily. Yeah. No, I also believe that, you know, in the Baroness, that's a good kind of point to actually bring up. That, you know, I feel in a similar way with the Baroness. It's all very like, I don't know, very kind of dominatrix, very sexy kind of look. But it's not really that I have an issue with. It's just like every time we get a Baroness cover where she's like, you know, got a finger on a butt or something, and it's just, you know, it's all very like, I just find it very, I don't know, I just find it very distasteful, personally, okay?
Fair enough. And I've never thought of sex selling a GI Joe book until very recently. I feel like it's a trend in comic books and a tactic that, you know, is aping the superhero market. You know, back in the 80s and 90s, I didn't buy a GI Joe book because it had Baroness, you know, put the finger up her ass on the cover. I mean,
exactly.
No. But I do dispute, you know, if you put Baroness in body armor, practical as it may be, it stops being Baroness.
No,
sex has always been one of her greatest weapons.
Fair enough. Like, and that's totally cool. Like, I'm not saying we should never have Baroness figures ever again. What I'm kind of getting at is that, at least on the artwork, she's kind of more, you know, it's more like dynamic in that she's, you know, got the gun out and she's kind of like in like an action pose. It's a little bit better than, like, we're going to see another one coming up soon, which I have an issue with. But if we if I'm talking about these two pieces of art, I would probably put, you know, it's tight because Hollow Point has like a very loose connection with me because I was aware of the character more than most people in the Joe fandom when it was kind of revealed, and I do like the fact that they dip into something like Built to Rule. In terms of the artwork, it's a complete rip of Lowlight from Pursuit of Cobra, which not many people noticed at all as it came out, but I believe it was Adam actually that sent me a picture of the two next to each other, and I was like, holy shit, that is like a mirror image almost exactly of Lowlight, and then a few changes to, you know, obviously the secondary's different.
And they gave him rock and roll's face.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, the actual reason it was done is obviously because
Skymate's cap.
Yeah, exactly. Because obviously he shares parts with Lowlight, of course, like, you know, body parts and all that kind of stuff in the actual figure. And also what I noticed they did was they gave him all the same weapons just so they could reuse that artwork. And also because he's a marksman, he's like a marksmanship expert, I think, in the actual, on his file card. The original certainly was. So I'm guessing it was ripped from the, you know, exactly from what the original file card said. So, you know, they've obviously just gone, well, what can we do at short notice? Hollow Point seems to me to be one of the most, what can we do at a really short notice? You know, what options have we got to bang this out? Because I think something went a little awry in their decision making, because it feels weird to be a 13th for one, and it also felt like a little bit rushed. And the fact that it's literally, you know, Lowlight with Skymate's head and then a bunch of other little bits and pieces done, it just felt like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing, right? Okay, fair enough. And yeah, so that. My issue's more with the idea of it, and I don't mind them dipping into it, that homage, but I don't know, it didn't feel like it was done that well to me personally. So this is a difficult one for me because I don't really know which one I'm going to go for, and I'm just going to say hollow point to make it interesting.
Oh,
Interesting indeed.
Sorry, that was a long way to get there. Sorry, guys.
No worries, man. It's kind of put all the cards on the table, I must say. Thanks for, once again, being the man with the facts.
And a lot of opinion.
No, I appreciate the opinion. I know you're closer to the comics, the current comics. So I do kind of catch your drift when you say the handling of women in comics and the portrayal of the feminine, etc. I just to start off with the Night Stalker Commander, I'm not going to do too much commentary because I know this is about art.
Yeah.
But I do think that this figure works in Cobra Commander Blue. And that's the only way it works. But it has to come with light weapons because that's got to be his travel guard. That's really the only way this figure works. Having said that, the art is very kinetic. I do like the movement. The Cobra emblem is hard to beat, as you know. By the way, Ron Rudat, he'll be celebrating his 50th anniversary at Joe Fest, by the way, Friday night. I think that's going to be some kind of shindig. If you're headed to Joe Fest or thinking about it, yep. But moving right along and seamlessly for that promo, I think Hollow Point will get my vote, even though he's got a little craziness going with his arms and his shoulders. But the look, this is one thing where they nailed the eyes. Like, that's the eyes of a killer. So I think, even though he has a red hat, that kind of gives him character. And the figure actually looks pretty interesting. So I'm going to go with Hollow Point.
Wow. Tie
Nice.
ball game.
Split down the middle. Paul, take us home, brother.
okay. So I'm going to put a bullet in the Hollow Point's head right now, actually, because I didn't choose this artwork because the second I saw it, I had a knee-jerk reaction. I'm like, I know that artwork. I actually, I saw the artwork before it was on a card. So I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, no, I'm sure that's Lowlight. And I dug out my cards in my bedroom because I wasn't going to try and Google it. I was just, because I thought maybe I was going crazy. And I'm like, nope, this is Lowlight. This is like a paint over on Lowlight. Now, this is my issue with it. Mike Thompson did the original artwork for Lowlight for the Pursuit of Cobra series.
Yeah.
I think it wouldn't have hurt them too much to actually just commission him again to do the repaint on this. Because then he could have just taken his original files and then just added stuff and all that. And I think that would have been great. I think, as Chris said, this is a very rushed sort of affair that's going on here. And I can see it in the artwork, because it's definitely painted over. There's a lot of things, like that one pouch in front of his crotch there is just irritating the crap out of me.
Yeah.
And all artists, we all make mistakes when we do production art. At the end of the day, all we want is for the art director and for the production, designer or whoever it is in charge of the money to sign it off and let us go so that we can work on something else that's cool, And this is one of those, oh, dude, we need to get this going for print like tomorrow at 2:00. I know it's kind of like 11 o'clock at night now, but do you think you can do this quickly? I think that's what happened. So for that, it's a great job. But it's just, whereas the Night Stalker Commander, I think she's pretty cool. Or the Night Stalker Commando, I think she's pretty awesome, actually.
AKA Joy Division.
Joy Division, yeah. Okay, so like one like glaring like thing that jumps out at you aside from her gaping forehead, is
On the
like,
figure, the artwork doesn't do it. Sorry, did I not make that clear? I applaud the artwork for successfully handling that.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? But the other thing is that the artwork is a brunette and the toy is more of a blonde, at least in the photograph that I'm looking at. So I think that's a bit of a weird disconnect. But I'm actually happy to see. It's weird. It's like I love female characters. I love having them as toys. I think they're great. And I definitely want to echo Chris's sentiments about making them look more militaristic, especially when you've seen tons of guys do customs of like Lady J and Scarlet with male bodies. And it actually ends up looking pretty damn fine because when you're wearing, BDU and you've got your like body armor on and all that stuff, it's difficult to distinguish if you're a woman or not anyway on the battlefield. And I think that I've always been a fan of that. I've always appreciated that.
Hasbro did it themselves, didn't they? With 50th anniversary Lady J using Steel Brigade pants?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, she's packing, dude.
Yeah, and it's awesome. I mean, listen, I'm all about I'm all about giving like the character a bit of something, because as we've mentioned before, the Baroness, one of her weapons is sex, so it actually makes sense for her to be dressed the way she is. But then again, like my buddy Warren, he recently did a cover for GI Joe last year, like an exclusive cover of the Baroness, and it's definitely one of those "I'm a sexy Baroness with my gun" kind of. Look at me, I'm so cute and sexy, which I give him about, by the way. But it's an awesome artwork nonetheless. But yes, I also get irritated with like sort of over sexualized military women. It's just kind of like, it's just, I don't know, I just find it tasteless, like Chris said. And also, like, you know what? I think this is kind of a missed opportunity. I would still love it if somebody, I mean, this is like, with everything I've said, this is going to sound like a real slap in the face now, but but in the animated series, the female Cobra troopers or Baronesses guys, they're not wearing pants. They're wearing like mini skirts or something, if memory serves. I would still love a version of that just because it's an homage to the show, not because I think it's like a very good tactical decision. And I mean, like most of these
Roddy
female
Piper legs.
yeah, but these are cool. These are like, anyway, just I'm digressing now. Like, let me get back to the artwork. The artwork itself is fairly average, but I'd rather take a fairly average original artwork over a very rushed over paint on somebody who's currently still, over somebody who's still an artist who still is getting work or can get work. So no offense to the guys who did this. I understand the production pipeline. I understand like stuff happens and whatever, so you can't always control it. Good job on him with the blonde beard, but yeah, Hollow Point is not going to get it for me. The Night Stalker Commando is going to go all the way through. I think she's totally cool. Oh, it's a decent enough artwork, and she's not the only one in black in this list. So, but I got to. One more thing. I love the eyes. Whoever the model is that he got for this, she's got beautiful eyes, and he managed to put that across nicely.
Thank you, Paul.
Right? This is a more like sort of, like a 15 or 16-year-old Chris. This is what the photo's based off. It's like a 15.
Chris, what were you passing when you posed for the bad photo?
I'm not saying.
Must have been very.
But I love it. Yeah, I think it's really, really cool. But yeah, anyway, so that's the one that should go through, definitely.
Damn, Night Stalker's Commander makes it through to round 2. Gentlemen, Crosshair versus Verona.
Verona.
And I'm up first. Hey, Hector.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. My turn to crack the ice. Oh, wow. I take it Verona is Dana.
Yeah.
Correct? Whew. That makes it a very, very tough pick because let me tell you, I have no idea who Hollow Point is or what his lineage is, how
Crosshair,
he came to be.
or Hollow Point.
Crosshair, sorry. Crosshair. Gosh, all these new names.
You just proved your point, Stephen.
There you go. I have no idea who Crosshair is in the GI Joe mythology, apart from the fact that he apparently looks like a sniper, and that's what Joepedia told me as well. I assume he's from the comic books, but I don't know where his origin is. I hope Chris will be able to give us a history lesson once again.
I'll fill you in later.
No pressure, brother. But I guess that allows me to look at these on their art merits alone. And while Verona's looking sexy as hell, I'm not giving her a pass for that. She's got that coquettish counter pose. The hips going one way and the shoulders going the other. There we go. Thank you, Mr. Artman. Weapons are cool. They're accurate. There's a Luger in the one hand and an AK in the other, which is interesting. Did the Russians ever use Lugers? Maybe if they stole it from a Nazi officer in World War II. But anyways, I don't know what the symbol on her chest means. Is that something that became to the October God?
So basically, Dana appears, or Verona appears in the Devil's Due comics because October Guard are wiped out pretty much in the storyline, and she becomes a GI Joe member. And to become a GI Joe member, she is initiated in with they kind of released a bunch of kind of characters. I think Mayday was in there. There were a few others. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'll flash up the image from the actual comic in the video. And Verona is one, and this shirt that she's wearing is basically just appears. I think it's actually she's slightly different coloring in the original when she first appears. I think there's like a grey shirt she wears as opposed to a black one. But this is like she kind of appeared in both of those kind of different kind of deco colours, but she also had a hat on, so that's something this figure doesn't do. But we get like a blonde, kind of just blonde hair kind of scenario. But yeah, she's in the comics as she's kind of brought into the GI Joe team along with a bunch of other different kind of new characters. I think Devil's Due were trying to bring in a few more characters in that particular storyline, and she was one of them.
Makes sense to me there would be during the Devil's Due tenure on Joe, because that highly impractical manga hairstyle was something that they tended to have a lot of. But oh man, Adam knocked it out of the park with Crosshair. It's incredible. Like, the physics of the pose work is, that is the perfect sniper pose. The blousing on his combat pants, BDU pants, the boots. Jeez, I can't fault this artwork. This is a strong contender for like my favorite of all. It is a new GI Joe artwork, and also, it's perfect. It's seamless because it does evoke all that cool stuff that went into making GI Joe packaging art the most compelling and most alluring toy artwork of all time. So
totally.
It's right up there in the Hall of Fame for me. So I cast the first stone. Crosshair for the win, baby.
So I've got like an attachment again to both of these particular characters, I should say. So I'll start with Crosshair, and there's a cool little story about this one, because Adam did the art again, as we all know, and he was struggling to work out because they were saying like, we want him in a sniper pose, and he's like, what the hell, how am I going to do that on a card that's got this amount of space? And he basically was like struggling to work out what to do. And then he had this epiphany one day where he was thinking he's going to be kneeling down and the barrel of the gun can run right in that gap above the figure bubble.
Where the name goes, yeah.
And you can get pretty much all of that in. And he was basically just like, eureka moment. So he was like, he did this. And then, funnily enough, like, as when it was revealed and the artwork comes out, Fred Mayer, we'll shout out Fred, he posted, he's the Joe Battle Lines guy, he basically posted a comment on Adam's art saying, oh, so he's left-handed. Because he's been shown in other stuff as being right-handed. And Adam was like, give me a break. Like, there's no way he could have done it, like, that worked the other way around. So it's just like, it's like I suppose, suspension of disbelief, or, maybe he's flipped around really quickly and picked the gun up a certain way. And because he's so good at what he does, he can hold it left-handed. I don't know. I'm just throwing out some story right here. But the artwork is gorgeous. It's stunning. It's beautifully proportioned. Something that Adam does is he'll take photo reference, but he'll only use it as reference. He doesn't use any of that particular image, if you know what I mean. It's not like he digitally enhances it or anything. He paints
He doesn't
on
paint
draws
over it,
he traces
from
over it.
like he doesn't do anything like that. It's just for reference. But he'll take, like he did, like we spoke in the last episode about his wide scope and Lamont art. It's him, and he did like the pose and got a picture taken of him in this pose with white screen in the background, just to kind of get, how does the fabric fall, where are the folds, how does this work, and does it feel comfortable? So this was another one of those kind of things, I think, where he got someone to pose for it. I don't know who that is, by the way. I would tell you if I did, even if you told me not to. But it's really, really cool.
I would pose for you, Adam.
Draw me like one of your crosshairs. Draw me like one of your Midwest Americans. And so we move on to Verona, and this is one of those ones where, like, I find it like proportionally a little bit all over the place. I find the artwork to be this is one of the issues I had in that kind of like, oh, okay, so we're going like sexy and come hither and all that kind of stuff. It's like we don't see guys on the card art doing these poses. You know what I mean? Like we don't see Flint standing like that, like with his hip to the side and all that kind of stuff. And I know that sounds crazy, but we don't see that. And it's a shame because I love this figure and I love Verona as a character. I think it was really cool the club did her, and I think it was a really cool way of with that design, that kind of like it's almost like some sort of bird, isn't it? It's like a bird head on a red kind of sun background type thing, and it's really neat. And in actual fact, it's so cool. Kate, my wife, did a cosplay of this particular figure, and I managed to recreate that design and put it on a shirt for her. So it's really cool. Like it's an awesome cosplay. I'll flash that up as well for everyone podcast.
Hi, Kate.
Hi, Kate, and she loves you guys, by the way. So, so I kind of have a little bit of, it just rubs me the wrong way. I kind of think, I don't know.
I bet her cosplay of it didn't rub you the wrong way.
Hey, exactly. But yeah, so that's again. I'm not going to keep going into it. But I think I'd much rather see the Night Stalker commander kind of pose, or as we'll see later on, another character. Which again, it's let's just focus on Verona for now. I'm going to have to put through Crosshair because he's amazing.
Enough said. Bam. All right, Cujo. What do you say, brother?
No, I think that all the comments that are being made are relevant, and I like them. Crosshair, right? There's a couple sins on this one. He needs an emblem of some sort. He needs an identifier. His eye is shut. I understand the card art and the framing, so I'm not going to balk that. He's just too boring for me. That's the only issue. Technically, he looks nice. Verona, right? Exotic, Russian. It could be a sexy pose. It could also just be, you know what? Here I am. She is flexing as above, so below pose. I'm not going to reference that. I'm just going to say it's a kind of emblem. I like the emblem. It looks a little Pokemon, but I'll take it.
It does, yeah, totally.
I'm not going to read too much into the framing. I like the eyes. It does draw you in. If you saw that figure hanging up, you're going to pick it up before a lot of others. So I'll take Verona.
Nice. Makes things a little bit more interesting.
Sorry, I should add quickly, I forgot to mention, the original art was done in an October Guard dossier by the club, and it's basically Dana in the same pose, but in her kind of October Guard garb for the club release, I think. And when I say club release, I mean the 2012, I want to say, convention, where it was Operation Bear Trap, I think it was called. But anyway, there's artwork in a dossier from the club that is basically full body, kind of like in one of those like kind of Action Force or GI Joe profile pages they used to do in the comics, and it takes it's the same pose effectively, but they've just redone it in the new kind of style. But I think it's completely new still. They've just replicated the pose exactly. Sorry, carry on.
Paulie?
I'm going to take that Verona card art and basically say there are so many more things they could have done with her, especially now that I know that it's actually Dana. There is no Dana, only Verona.
And Volga.
Yeah, they could have just made her cool. They could have put her in an action pose. This is Dana is a character that is, like, in the comic books, she is action and she's great. And here I just think, okay, well, yeah, it's sexy lady in military attire, whatever. In this case, the toy is going to make me buy the toy, not the artwork. But Crosshair is really awesome. So the first thing that drew my attention to this was the pose. It was so well done because it is so difficult to draw somebody in a kneeling shooting pose. And to get it right, and to get there's a lot of stuff that's happening there, and it's really difficult to do. And Adam totally nailed it. Like, this is a really good looking artwork. It's just aesthetically pleasing in pretty much every way. The foreshortening on the gun, which is a tricky thing, is also pretty difficult to do, and I think he got that right. I think it's one of out of all of his artworks that I've seen, it's one of his best renderings of a weapon. So kudos on that one. Love the clothing, love the gear. Love that he's left-handed. I'm actually so I was like, oh, cool, left-handed sniper for GI Joe. That's cool. Oh, and yeah, okay, fine. He has no identifiers, but he's distinctly GI Joe. I mean, he's definitely got a GI Joe look to him. He's green. He's not wearing blue or purple or pink or anything like that, and he hasn't got any cybernetic parts, so he must be a GI Joe. I dig it, man. I think it's a cool artwork, and I think it definitely needs to move on to the next round. Verona can stay where she is. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be that harsh, but I really don't like that artwork. I think it's flat. I think it lacks personality. I think her face is amateurly done. It reminds me of artwork I was doing when I was like in the early 2000s. It's just it's not cool. I really hate it.
Well, there's nothing good to say about
Say
this
what you feel, Paul.
Yeah.
Hate leads to suffering. Suffering leads. I can't even remember the quote now. Awful Star Wars fan.
Yeah, guys, no, like like seriously, I always try to be like respectful to the artists who do these things, because I know that I've also made my fair share of artworks in a production level. So like, I don't want to be too cruel on this, but actually, this is not the artist's fault. This is the art director's fault. The art director could have pushed for more. And could have pushed
I think
more.
so.
And Chris, I think
of-
you were scrambling for.
Anger leads to hurt. Hurt leads to pain.
Wait, no, I f***ed it up.
Pain.
It's
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hurt. Hurt leads to suffering.
no, I fucked it
Ripcord,
up.
man.
Oh,
Get a second
Oh,
take.
never gonna get it right. You had two
Damn it.
tones.
Oh,
You had two tries.
I'm just trying.
I'll give you
But
16
anyway,
more
so-
goes.
Leave that one on the cutting room floor.
You better Google it quickly.
Rob,
I'll just put the actual
Yes.
sound clip in there so we don't have to sound like we're idiots.
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
God, I honestly thought I had it. Oh,
Steven,
wow.
I thought you had it too.
That's a sign of age, isn't it? Anyways,
No,
dude,
I think you
Yes.
secretly hate Star Wars at the moment. I think
just the
That's what I-
prequels.
secretly,
The prequels and the
secretly.
sequels. Robbie,
So,
I know it's academic.
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate.
Anger leads
Hate
to
leads
hate.
to suffering.
hate leads to suffering.
and not just suffering. Suffering.
Well, you put us out of our suffering. Thank you very much, Christopher.
You're
Well,
welcome.
So, even though this is academic, as Stephen said, I'll still say a couple of things. I think, yes, this Adam Reaches piece is absolutely incredible. I mean, there's just so much detail to it. I mean, even like the way that his boot, kind of comes away from his foot, his left
Yeah,
foot.
yeah.
I just love that little detail. It's just
Like a
he could have
snake
just
in a
drawn
boot.
it exactly, But like, it's interesting and it's so detailed. Like you can feel the texture of his, his top, and he's got the black gloves on. And yes, he's kind of not terribly distinctive, as Cujo pointed out, but he looks militaristic and he looks like he means what he's doing. And then Verona, which I think Chris was getting at earlier, you don't see male characters doing this. You don't see them just kind of being like, "Hey, I'm a sexy man. Check me out, please."
I don't know. Flint's
Um,
pulling the gun show, if you can recall.
Flint
I mean,
often does do that, yes, but
But his hip is still
It-
it's still straight on. I want him to be
His
doing
hip is
that,
still
straight
but I
on.
want him to
for
just like
example.
I want
just like poke his
to
bum
just
out
flick
a
his
little
hip a little bit.
Yeah.
I'd be
Yeah,
like,
I wanted to poke his finger in his bum a little bit.
Not the hand with the not the hand with the sawn-off shotgun in it though.
Oh, that's some deviant art happened there, man.
I'll flash it up on
But
screen. Don't worry.
YouTube, no, TOS. But I get where Chris is coming from. I mean, you don't see this pose. Often the male poses always suggest power and I suppose danger in a way as well, and strength. Well, in this case, whoever directed the person to draw this, they were like, give me a sexy chick, not knowing necessarily who this character was, behind this. And they weren't told, like, the history of the character, what a strong woman she is. I mean, she's in the military and she survived tons and tons of stuff. I mean, if
In
the
fact,
Devil's Due story is
she-
to be believed.
I mean, I was just thinking about it now. Dana as a character, if you take Joe Colton off the table, she is of the characters we've got in this competition, she is the most seasoned. I mean, didn't October God pop up in like issue 5?
Yeah, it was
of
early,
American
wasn't
Hero?
it? Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
one of the
very early.
earliest. And just thinking about that and all of that, just the way that they could have put so much character into her, instead they just made her into a sex symbol. It's such a big disservice to the history of the character and it could have been so much more. I mean, yes, the guns look really awesome, and I like her kind of swishy hairstyle, but like Crosshair definitely goes through. It's just, to me, it's so well rendered and well captured, and it's interesting to know the story behind it as well. That somehow, Adam managed to get this to work, despite the guy being left-handed, which is just so wrong.
Oh,
Well,
amazing.
Crosshair, left hand, right hand, ambidextrous, whatever. He proceeds to the next round. Verona, goodbye. Next up, we have Kangor versus Darklon. Paul's up first.
Cool. So let me start this off by saying that any excuse to put a plastic kangaroo in as a pack-in for a GI Joe action figure, that's one. That's super one right there. And this artwork is so cool because this kangaroo is like, love me, and then this dude's just like, I'm gonna backhand you. He's gonna backhand this kangaroo, and it's terrible. I feel really bad for that kangaroo. That's and then obviously this inspired Tekken because for those of you listeners that are not in the know, this is actually sort of an homage to the original Brazilian, I believe it's the Brazilian or the Argentinian release of this figurine that was packed with a kangaroo. So maybe that's what inspired the kangaroo in Tekken. But I love this artwork. It's like that kangaroo is so obviously just placed there. And if you look at the original, it's like that on the original as well. So it's like, is the new one better? Is it worse? Is it the same? I don't know. It's about a guy about to slap a kangaroo, which is terrible. But anyway, it's there. And then we have Darklon. Okay, so full disclosure, I've added Darklon to this list. I'm surprised that actually got in because I think that this is the best Darklon artwork. I think it's better than the vintage one in a lot of ways. Definitely sells the character to me, and it definitely makes him look like more of a schemer. I like that he's sort of, he's not like jumping out at you, and his guns aren't all blazing, and he's not all like, I am Darklon. He's just like, I am Darklon. I'm going to use this gun to kill my enemies. And I'm going to do it while wearing red and green Tiger Force pants. And I love it. I love it. I think it's great. And yeah, there's a few things about this artwork that are a little bit of a miss. But I want to push Darklon through because it's the best version of Darklon. Nobody really likes Darklon, so I'd like to be there to back him up. I'm pretty sure that Kangor is going to get through. It's just the way the universe works. You put a kangaroo on the same packaging as a boxer. You know what I mean? But like, I would like to put my vote in for old Darklon because I love that helmet. It's like Destro's. It's kind of sad and menacing at the same time. That gun, which is completely bizarre, which I would hate to have painted myself, is lovingly rendered by Mr. Riches over here. And it definitely informs you of what's on the toy. I mean, I can see which parts have been used for the toy based on the artwork. That's pretty cool. And yeah, I can't gush on it anymore. I'm not really gushing, but I think it's great. Who would like to tell me otherwise?
Okay, so Kangor. Força Fera, Brazilian release originally, as Paul mentioned. Commandos Emechao or Emesao. I can never really pronounce that properly.
Emechao!
Is it Emechao?
Yeah.
Apologies.
Yeah, it's a cow. Yeah.
From Estrela. I love the fact that they did these because these are like really cool pieces to own just in general. And you got randomly, I think, like, I want to say like Repeater was released in that set, and there were like 4 of them basically for the Força Fera team. And they're just hilarious. And yeah, and I love the fact that the club, I kind of like the fact the club went and did something like that. They kind of homaged that particular like era and that area of GI Joe. What I didn't like
in the same way, knocking out 2 figures with 1 sculpt.
Yeah, but the other thing I didn't like was the fact that they just went for the very, very simple repaint of Big Boa. Again, this is by the by in the art kind of category. But that did rub me the wrong way. Now, in terms of the art, it's almost identical from the original. They've just lifted effectively that original one off, but they've given him slightly bigger gloves, and of course they've had to change the Cobra emblems to black instead of the yellow that were on the original artwork. Which is funny because I think the original figure's gloves are black Cobra symbols anyway on the figure, which is quite funny. So I would have, if I was them, I would have actually painted them yellow just to homage the cover as well. But that's by the by. But everything else is pretty much exactly the same as the original. Now, Fun School, I find the art like brilliant in a really bad way. I know this isn't Fun School. This is Estrella. But whenever they redid the kind of Joe art for Fun School and these releases in Brazil and Argentina and all the South American countries, and in fact, in Action Force cases as well, some cases they're just hilarious, and it's just the case of you look at it and you love it for not for its quality, but you love it for the opposite. You love it for its like absolute like slap in the face of quality on, you know, in some of the faces and in some of the way that the proportions and I just find it like hilarious that someone was actually, well, you know, they might have been beaten to do it. I'm not sure that, you know, they could have been paid. They could have also have been like horribly like slashed with swords on their back or something as they were drawing it. But all that said and done,
how do you make windmills accessory work? Honestly,
it's gorgeous, isn't it?
Just go balls deep, bro.
Totally.
Just do it.
Now, in this case, I'm not. If we're looking at this as a piece of art opposed to what Adam has done for Darklon, which I would say everyone seems to have chosen art that Adam's done where the character's standing upright and not really that dynamic. And I know, like, with Adam's work, he's obviously told to do. He said, like, you know, they tell him what pose they want and he has to just execute it. There's no, you know, he'll try to kind of like put certain elements to it to kind of like, you know, sway them a little bit. But for the most part, the club will ask for that. So I always found it confusing why, you know, Guillotine and Darklon and
Ghost Rider, I think.
Ghost Rider
is another one. You know, and there was a couple of others where he was told
Worms.
and I'll get into that history later on when we get to that one. But there's loads where he's told to do something and then he'll try and change it by doing a crosshair or by doing something else, and they'll go, oh yeah, okay, that works. Treadmark was another one. They got him to, you know, he was like, I'm not just going to have him standing upright pointing a gun. It doesn't make any sense. So he did the one leg up on the back of his Desert Fox. And they went with that. So it's kind of like, in this case, I find Darklon beautifully drawn, beautifully rendered, you know, everything looks fantastic. But because there's not much going on with him, like he's not doing much, I kind of like tend to find, I love Adam's work when there's more dynamism to it. That's where I really kind of get a real love for the stuff that he does. So I'm finding it difficult at the moment to choose between the two, because you've got, on one side, you've got the Force of Fairer art, which is mentally hilarious, but then on the other side, you've got this like beautifully rendered and drawn Darklon, but he's not doing much. So this is going to be the first one I go against Adam with, and he's going to hate me for it because it's Kangor, for Christ's sake. And I apologise, Adam, but I'm going to go with Kangor on this one. Don't worry, I've kissed you enough to this point, and later on I'll be kissing it even more, so don't worry. So I'm going with Kangor just because it makes me my pants.
Guys, I just want to add something about it. I'm pretty sure that Kangor wasn't even painted. I'm pretty sure that at least one children's book about animals died in the process of making this artwork, because the guy basically went to his son and he was like, cut out that kangaroo for daddy. And then he cut out the kangaroo and they slapped it on and then Xeroxed it. That's pretty much what they did.
Also, I think the kangaroo can hold his own against Big Boa. Have you seen? Well, I know, Stephen, you're probably coming up to them all the time now.
Mm-hmm. Nuisance, those little but yeah. Your car tends to come up against them all the time.
What, as you're running them over?
Dude, the amount of kangaroo roadkill on Australian highways. Holy it is carnage out there, my man. Like,
no wonder they put boxes.
Totally. But I'd like to, at this juncture, read you a translation that I found of Kangor's file card. Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Lutador Sevagalem. What? Never mind. A cruel and insensible boxer. Kangor was banished from every championship he participated for being too violent and disloyal.
This is the kangaroo, hey?
No,
Okay.
the character, dude.
Oh.
Kangaroo. This next sentence deals with the kangaroo.
Oh, right,
In a trip to Australia, he stole and trained the kangaroo Guru to form with him the most hideous duo ever seen. Kangor uses and abuses cheap hits.
Wow.
And Guru, standing in his tail, makes precise punches with front paws and devastating kicks with his feet. not being hit by anyone. And then the bottom quote is, a quarrelsome kid, nobody could win in a street fight with Kangor. If he was at a disadvantage, he would soon appeal and call his friends to help. Oh yeah, his friends were enormous bulldogs and scary and very nervous feline cats, I think is the translation. So dogs and cats came to his aid. Oh. Yeah, dude, that's Kangor for
Well, at
you.
least we know he's sparring with the kangaroo on the front then, and it's not
Yeah,
he's not
he's not
smacking
actually-
it about.
Well, no, he's toughing it up for the real bout, I
Exactly.
guess. I don't know.
just for prosperity, I suppose, is that the right word? Tigor was one, and that was a recoil repaint with a tiger that came with. Obviously, we said Kangor. There was a backblast reissue with a lion, and he was called Leontir or something like that. And then Urzor came with a big bear, and was not Big Bear, but was Repeater repaint. He kind of looks like, with the tash in the artwork, kind of looks like Leatherneck, but it's basically Repeater repainted.
Cool.
Oh man, this is a very collectible set. As if the prices weren't high enough, they're going to spike after this.
I love them, and I love the Force of Fera logo as well. Actually, I kind of want to get that on a T-shirt now.
It is actually really cool. And, I mean, if we're accused enough of, putting prices up anyway.
Well, let's put some T-shirts into this universe and actually make some money, guys.
Brent lives. That is the next GI Joburg shirt. Brent lives.
So, yes, I think before Chris spoke, I was very much on Darkland. I was very much on Darkland's side. I was like, it's so well drawn.
Don't make me change your mind.
Well, no, but Kangor is just insane. I mean, also Steven's story. I mean, he's like a crazy man, but he loves animals, and I think that just makes him so interesting.
You're such a sucker for an animal companion, aren't you, Rob?
Exactly, I am. He's an anti-hero, standing up for himself, standing up for the animals.
I just love that in Brazil of all places, a kangaroo and a man, like a giant boxing man, teamed up together are a gruesome team. Wow.
Absolutely. I mean, if you'd stayed in Australia, I mean, you would have had to have fought all the other kangaroos.
Be like, it's Carl again.
It doesn't work. But really, there is something very dynamic about Kangor's art. I mean, he's kind of punching forward, he's moving about, and yes, that kangaroo is very well drawn. And this Darkland is fantastic. I mean, he was one of my picks actually on my list, both him and Kangor actually, which is once again why it's so difficult to choose. I mean, the same with Night Stalker versus Hollow Point. I was like, who's going to go forward? But I think Paul's prediction might come true, because I'm actually swayed towards Kangor. He's fascinating and he's interesting. That makes me want to buy this toy. When Darkland, yes, he's menacing and he's crazy and he's angry, but I think the toy itself would make me buy him no matter what the artwork was, because it's a really cool looking character and a cool figure. Yeah, I'm choosing Kangor. Jeez. Hoppity hip into the next round.
Yep,
Hopefully,
I'm next,
depending
and yeah, dude, I'm gonna put Kangor through as well. I know this is incredible.
This is the most mental thing ever.
We are mad.
It is, and it's going through on mental points, but I can't argue how magnificently handled the kangaroo is. And yes, Paul, I take your point. It probably is totally lifted from a wildlife National Geographic style, pictorial.
Look, this is gruesome kangaroo.
Exactly.
Not in Slavic.
Wow. As far as the art is concerned, I suppose it's a one-to-one conversion, basically. And this artwork, it being lifted from Big Boa and then used again for Balrog, I think.
Yes, I think it was, yeah.
I think Balrog's card art is probably my favorite card art of the 90s. And I know its lineage as being a Street Fighter artwork probably removes it from contention, but I was gutted that no one else saw the merits. Well, very few people saw the merits of nominating Street Fighter artwork for our 90s card art battle, because I was so ready to champion Balrog all the way to the end.
Yeah, I was kind of contemplating it, but then I don't know. I figured it. I don't know. You're right. We probably should have had at least given them a thought when you proposed it. There's so much good art in that era. Though. I know people were going on about how this is and that is, but I thought it's a really solid era for some amazing artwork.
Yeah, man. Almost photo real. It's like they took, ironically, animation sprite characters and made their card arts look like humans, like real people. That was a triumph. So this is incredible because, I mean, I'm going to put him through on a sort of like the potential that I know that he could later become. And look, I mean, it's going through on the high fidelity kangaroo. I mean, I've seen a few up close and personal. They look just like that. They're super cute. Amazing. Kangor.
Cooch, before I let Cooch take over, I just want to say one more thing about the Darkline artwork. I know we're all thinking about it, but now I know why he's looking at his gun. He's like, now that I'm out of the evader, what am I supposed to do with this thing? Any of your Darklines outside of your evader? No. Mine's in his evader.
Locked
Yours
in
is
forever.
in his evader.
That figure never leaves his evader.
He's too embarrassed.
Cooch,
with good cause, I
guess.
guess. I mean, every villain, you got to be scared of him, and we would have to see that gun fire to know if we should even be afraid of it. So
probably a t-shirt cannon, isn't it?
It could be a paintball gun. You never know. I do like his helmet. The helmet was nice. Cheers, Riches. Let's see. As far as Kangor, yeah, I can't say anything fresh. He'll be in the next round. I do think that there is an opportunity for future conventions or expos or whomever. Instead of retooling figures, redo animal companions. Give them a little bit of articulation. Can you imagine a little bit bigger kangaroo that can put your opponent in a headlock?
That'd be amazing.
That would be that'd be intimidating.
The new Marauder Task Force dogs are incredible. So, like, I'd love to see them do a kangaroo just randomly.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Next
up, Ghost Rider versus Sub-Zero. And first to the mic, it's Christopher.
Oh, cool. Okay, so this is another one where I have some inside information on with Ghost Rider, or Jonas Mother Jeffries, as I like to call him, because whenever you see his name written down, they've kind of etched out the, they've kind of like censored out the Ghost Rider part for the copyright issue. So he is actually Jonas Mother Jeffries, and
he's a Jonas brother.
Yeah, exactly. Now, in fact, it's funny we should say Joe in this one because that's who the face is, and that's a friend of Adam's. I'm not going to give a full name, but his name is Joe. And so that is another one where he got the pose, he got the kind of face in there, and then painted this quite remarkable Ghost Rider. Now, this is another one where we've got, Adam's been told to kind of, make them stand upright, and that's all they're doing. So he kind of thought, well, what can I do? What can I do for this particular character to, make it a bit more dynamic and interesting? And I think he nailed it. I think it's brilliant in that he got the famous material scarf that we get on the original figure, which is, was a really cool little touch of, in the vintage line. He's got that kind of flapping in the wind. Whee! And like, just the stance is very, it's very like, yes, I'm ready. I'm ready to get in this plane and probably die because it's really, because that's effectively what's happening here. But he's getting in the Ghost, the X-19, which is a very, like stealthy, cool plane.
Which I'm convinced is the model they used with some embellishments in Captain Marvel.
Oh, right.
If you've seen it, yeah, there's a ship in there. It is kind of the ship of the piece, and it bears a striking resemblance to that X-19 design.
Cool.
Anyways, now for that sidetrack.
Flash that one up on screen as well.
Oof, if you can get a screen grab of it.
Well, I'll steal it.
Good luck.
So I will cut that out. So he's also got that amazing kind of tampo on his right bicep as well, which is the one that you see on the plane as well. So it's nice that they can kind of add those particular elements where you're not getting a vehicle, but you are getting nods to it, which is really nice. And then, of course, the map on his right thigh, which is again really cool and bright and stands out and cool. Now, Sub-Zero, massive, massive fan of the original figure. He was one that I loved. I loved Winter Operations figures. Blizzard was unbelievably cool. Even Avalanche, who gets a raw deal being in Battle Force 2000, but I quite you know, I thought it was amazing. But you know, and Frostbite and Snowjob, etc., etc. Sub-Zero was one that kind of came out, and I think it was one of those things where it was like, we need another winter specialist in the lineup, and they cranked out this amazing Sub-Zero figure. Loads of like awesome elements to the actual original. I loved it very much. The modern figure, not so much. I'm not a massive fan of the modern interpretation of Sub-Zero. And with that, we get another...
Michelin Man?
Yes. That's the thing. Like, Sub-Zero was very form-fitting, figure-hugging clothes. He wasn't, like, padded out and, like, huge, ridiculous jackets and pants. That wasn't what he was. And unfortunately, they've done that for Blizzard. They've done it for every winter figure going. And it gets to the point where you're like, stop. Make something new or don't do it. And that was kind of... I was very strong feelings towards that figure because it was such one I loved as a kid. So when I look at the artwork, I just think it's been butchered. I think the upper half is hugely out of proportion to the lower half, which they've kind of kept almost original. It's obviously different snowshoes for a start because, you know, they were the part, they have to use the ones they have available. Different backpack, and they had one that would definitely work better than the one they used. The machine gun was the same, which was cool, but the actual build itself, I think the original for me, it's like almost sacrilegious what they've done to the new version artwork. They've painted over all of the details, all of the good details, because they had to, and you end up with what is effectively not something that isn't as good as the original, rather than an improvement on it. And for me, with that said, I have to go with Ghost Rider, and hell, I just keep putting Adam through. So you can thank Kangor that that I got at least someone that wasn't an Adam drawing through.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. But like, yeah, looking at a side-by-side comparison of the new art for Sub-Zero versus the old, they really have done a disservice to that artwork. They've taken out so many details, and that backpack is...
It makes no sense, does it? It just makes absolutely zero sense.
It's ridiculous.
Spirit's backpack for some reason, isn't it?
Like if I couldn't see the figure, I would assume he has arrows on his back. It's a quiver or something, or he's got
You're
some
absolutely
sort of...
right.
It's ridiculous. It's unfortunate. I mean, obviously the artist had to kind of render what the figure was going to look like, but like they took out so many details from the original art. I mean, even just the way that his top is buttoned on the original is so much more interesting.
And the modern version,
the
modern version, they just painted the buttons on, which makes it even more kind of a bit like, ugh, what? So those blue buttons are just like painted on, which I kind of think is like, it's just such a cop out, isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of feels like it zips up, and like the buttons are just there on top of the top, just for like fun. And it's like, why are you doing this? No.
Funtons.
they're little like Smarties, or like little sweets you can eat when he gets hungry. I don't know.
Buntons like that.
So, as an update of the original art, it's definitely a disservice. But like the Ghost Rider art, there's just so much character to this guy. Like, he's cocky, he's brash, he feels like he's a proper pilot. Like, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna take pictures. Watch me take pictures of your mom, guys. And just, yes, as Chris said, yes, he has to get him into this kind of like upright standing pose, because that was probably what was asked of him. There's still so much character in the crossed arms, and then the wonderful flowing scarf. I feel like I know this guy, or like I know who he is.
I do,
which I think is really... Okay, you personally know him, but I mean, I feel like I know who this character is. But I mean, and yes, yeah, definitely. If you compare Sub-Zero to the original, the new one is just, it's terrible what they had to do to that character to make him fit, the new look. And until you pointed out, I also hadn't realized how like buff he is. Like, his upper body is too big for his legs.
Yeah.
Like, does he just spend all day long, like, working on his arms?
No, he's just wearing 6 jackets.
It's really cold out here. I'm in Sub-Zero temperatures. Oh, jeez. No. I'm also going with Ghost Rider if it wasn't apparent. Yeah. Nostalgia be damned. Or maybe nostalgia be
damned
praised,
for me as well. Oh, okay. What, you have nostalgia
praised? Well, it's to Sub-Zero, because I mean, I think the original artwork is so much better than what they did to the new. So I think maybe nostalgia is, I don't know, being lived up to. I don't know. It's confusing. What do you say, Steve?
So had both these figures as a youngster. The artwork on Sub-Zero was something that was anomalous to me because I lost my card back early on in the game. So I didn't get to pore over the details of the artwork. Had I done that, I would have quickly decided that this is probably the best I'd ever seen from that era. I mean, it is pretty gorgeous and kind of shows up the figure to be inferior because they didn't quite get the Parker hood to look like it does on the figure, to get it to stand out like that. It looks like he's just got this kind of like, I don't know, form-hugging beanie that really molds to the shape of his head without kind of materially adding to the shape of the silhouette of the head.
Is he a gaper?
Yeah. He's kind of not really wearing his kit in the most
Please still
way.
do not Google that term.
Continue to not Google that.
Oh my goodness, not safe for work. Anyway, with Ghost Rider, I find myself loving all the little touches. But what is a real triumph in the art chops is that likeness. I think it adds so much to Ghost Rider. And that can be a good or a bad thing because you make it that characteristic and it might jar with people's preconceived ideas of what the character means.
Good point.
I know for me personally, I don't see my Ghost Rider with that kind of cocky grin. He's not Ace.
Yeah, he's nice, isn't he, Ghost Rider?
He's the stealth guy. He's the guy no one remembers. He's the guy who never really kicks up a fuss or, is particularly noteworthy or cocky or arrogant or, he's the kind of guy who isn't the hothead in the debate. He's the kind of guy that makes the final statement and everyone shuts the hell up. But I can't knock the art for that because the art is an absolute triumph. I love absolutely everything that Adam did, and I can see how much extra work he put in by getting an actual model and working off that. I mean, that's a lot of extra effort and takes that much more time, I'm sure. But the end result for what is a static pose is wonderful, and a pose that I would have put into my top 10, and I did, over something like Darklon. I mean, they both are statically posed, but there's something very cool and natural, and there's a depth to Ghost Rider that you don't see in the more sort of, I suppose the colors on Darklon don't really help making him slightly cartoonish, slightly. But when contrasting Ghost Rider and the retouched Snowjob, what's his name?
Sub-Zero.
Sub-Zero. It's black and white, baby. It's night and day, quite literally. And I always bet on black.
Incredible.
So, Ghost Rider. And I'm done.
Honestly, I'm going to save the Ghost Rider fodder for later.
Interesting. So you would have chosen them as well?
I don't love either artwork. I'll agree with everything that you guys said about Ghost Rider later.
Excellent. Okay, goes through. Paul, tell us a story.
Okay, so full disclosure, I actually chose old Sub-Zero here, and that is because it did push the nostalgia button. It's only till much later when Chris sent us these really awesome PDFs that we're now looking at while we're doing the show.
Cheat.
With comparisons of the original artwork or whatever. Well, it's much better than trying to find it on Google. That I actually saw it next to the original artwork, and I was like, oh no, Paul, what have you done? You can't go backsies now. No!
It's too late.
It's too late. It's already in. So, like that, I mean, that speaks for the power of the original artwork because it is so
right,
good. In fact, it is such an awesome mix of cool and warm colors. Like it complements itself so well. And I think there was actually purposefully done that way. I think it was very heavily art directed because they knew that the figure itself might not sell on its own merit and they needed the artwork to push it more so than normal. And as much as I'm a fan of the original toy, I am, but there is something about the face on that toy that can be a little bit I don't know, just something about it just freaks my kid brain out, or did freak my kid brain out. He always looks a bit, I don't know. But but when you have it in hand, you're like, wow, look at this guy's machine gun, and all that stuff comes up. So it's really great. So I'm sorry for adding this artwork for those of you who are listening. Going on to Ghost Rider, this is one of those situations where I would have loved to have seen the club take the Ace body from the new Sky Striker. You know, that really awesome pilot suit Captain Ace. I would have really loved to have seen a Ghost Rider version of that. And I'm just saying that because, you know, it has absolutely no bearing on the artwork. But it would have been really, really cool. I think that would have been such an awesome direction to take this figure into. It would have definitely added to the sort of stealth fighteriness of the X-19. And it would have definitely driven me to have gotten my own modern era Ghost Rider just for that. But looking at this artwork, yeah, okay. So the two major things that get me on this artwork, it's beautifully rendered. It is that leather jacket. Wow, leather jackets are a pain in the butt to paint, and he just nailed it. It's so cool. But the face, it's a fantastic face. It's a good face, but that's not the face of somebody who wouldn't get invited to his own birthday. And that's the only issue I have with the characterization in the artwork. I think Ghost Rider is meant to be very just chilled out looking, as we've all said before. That emblem on his jacket, that's one of my favorite GI Joe insignia, you know, in the line. I love it. It's a stunning thing, and it's right up there with, God, now my mind has gone blank. But that Cobra Biohazard symbol, it's one of those symbols I just really dig it.
Septic tank.
Yes, I love that symbol. They use it in the Atlantis Factor video game as well, and I dig it. And the Cobra Air Force insignia, they're just really sexy. This is right up there with it. In fact, I think this is a T-shirt I'd like to make for GI Joburg, is this insignia. But yeah, and I mean, I can get like really nitpicky and be like, well, why is his flight data on the side of his leg and not on his quad where it should be? Because when you're in a plane, you can't look at the side of your leg when you're in a fighter plane. So you can only really see that stuff on your quads if they're there.
I shifted them outwards to, you know, reduce the ball chafe.
Yeah,
he shifts them back in when he's in the cockpit.
I hope, I mean, yeah, that's a good way to explain it away, because that's the fault of the figure as well, because of the parts they use.
He was ghost riding his balls.
He's ghost riding his balls. But yeah, this is a cool artwork. It's a really, really cool artwork, and that it definitely gives it a whole new character. I like the idea that this guy could actually be the guy who actually killed Ghost Rider. That's how stealthy he is. He killed Ghost Rider, but he's even more charming. And now he's Ghost Rider.
No one knows.
Sartan as Ghost Rider. Bam. Done it.
Could be as well.
Sold.
But yeah, so I mean, it was going to be Ghost Rider. There was no doubts there whatsoever. So that's totally going through. And that is also my vote. Because Sub-Zero, you have failed me.
Sub-Zero does not win.
Does not win.
Fatality.
Yes.
Yeah, when I was
Cool.
totally thinking that, we'd be able to put in that sound clip. But nope. Sorry,
No.
Mortal Kombat fans.
Sorry, guys. Not going to happen.
Final matchup of round 1, the epic final figure subscription service battle. It's going to be Worms versus Munitia.
Incredible. And what I have to say is these are two very amazing pieces of art. I think the Worms Chris is probably going to wax on about it for a bit.
Sorry.
Because it's an no, don't be sorry. It's an example of I think what he's been trying to say the whole episode. You know, having that rigid standing position, but having it adapted in such a way that it doesn't look exactly the same. And I really do enjoy that. It kind of comes across as interesting and different. I think it really looks awesome. But my vote is actually going to go with Munitia because I think this is such a cool pose. Like, she just looks really awesome. She's got a little cell phone out. She's like, I'm ready to take your calls. But, you know, she's also going to slash and kill you with her left-handed gun. And that's pretty cool. She's well-kitted. Yes, her outfit is form-fitting, but I think it's practical in the way that, you know, she's a mercenary. She has to be able to kind of move around quite easily. And just the character feels very dynamic and feels very... I want to know who this character is. And I think she looks really, really cool. And also
Rise
like
of,
her... yeah.
No, I was just going to tell you where you can find her. She's in the Rise of the Red Shadows, if I'm not mistaken, by Devil's Due. Yeah.
She's one of the Plague.
Well, then I'm going to go... I'm going to go check that out.
As is Guillotine, by the way. I should have mentioned that too.
Hey.
So Guillotine and Munitia are both in the Plague.
And also, it's another example of them hiding the vaginal void very, very well. But also, I mean, I just love this pose. She's kind of like turning about and she's like, you're interrupting my call. Which is interesting because Chris, again, has provided us with a comparison to the original art, and she originally did have another gun in her hand,
Yeah.
which makes more sense for this pose, to me at least. But like, I just like it. It feels action. It feels like something's happening in this moment with her, and yeah, I'm Munisha all the way.
So both artworks, and it's funny that they both came up in the same round and going head to head, because in my narrative, they're both doing the same thing.
Yeah. They're on Skype
Pressing a
call.
button.
They're talking to each other.
PDA. So Worm's officer is firing off a missile. He's using that device to create an explosion. And that explosion is happening out beyond the camera. Munisha, because she's so twisted up, I feel like she's just hit detonate on the card art's background explosion.
Oh,
Brilliant.
wow.
And she's now
Brilliant.
whipping around to see, like,
So it doesn't
who else saw
blind
that.
her with her like night vision goggles looking directly at it.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also whipping around. I mean, she's got that pistol up. It's like she's about to bring it to bear on like whoever might have caught her in the act. And so I find there's a stronger narrative line in Munisha just because there are multiple things in play. There's a very clear chain of causality in Worm's officer's narrative. He's got a target sighted up. He's primed the weapon and he's let it loose. I do think that this is sort of perhaps a minimum range issue that might be in play there, but that's something that GI Joe's never really sweated since they strapped missiles all over themselves on a regular basis. And certainly that Rocketeer helmet.
Mace's forehead launcher.
Exactly. Yeah. Shout outs to HCC for his most recent review. I think the Rocketeer helmet will definitely help deflect some of that missile blast. And I absolutely adore the fact that in my mind, if Adam did get an actual human to pose for this, that he could have put them in rubber kitchen gloves to get the right tones and shading on the yellow and the folds right, because they do seem to have the texture of rubber gloves. Well, maybe that's just because I have such an association with that kind of canary yellow color and the gloves being up to one's elbows.
He's also got a rubber neckerchief as well.
Yeah, that must get clammy. I'm gonna back up my man Rob on Munisha just because, this comes from that middle era of GI Joe. This is a DTC character, if I'm not mistaken, and the artistic additions, which mirror the action figure, actually make it superior to its source material instead of inferior. This is like a piece of artwork that's been taken to the next level because it uses that helix bodice and the armored portions and slats and stuff really add something to the character design, and it's handled well, I think, in the artwork. Whoever made the additions did them successfully. Man, there's something magical about her parted lips. I love seeing that in my women.
No, I agree. It's nice to see like a mouth open, like sort of shouting, like how the guys are. The guys are shouting. It's nice to see the woman shouting.
And she uses the same shade on her lips as on her nails. So, like, I want to know what color that is. Okay.
Yeah, it's like a.
Let me save you from yourself.
Is that melon or is that surprise pink? Anyways, guys, Munisha, she's got 2 votes. Guys, this is looking dangerous for Worm's officer. And the next person to step up will be Cujo.
Well, I'm not going to say much about Munisha. That insight about her twisting away from the brightness, I like that. The gun's too much. A knife on a pistol, give me a break. I mean, it's functional, but it's too much. Worm's officer, for me, is kind of it's like looking at the painting, The Scream. I don't know why. The helmet is haunting to me. And it portrays something like... It portrays, I think, the struggle. The guy's decorated. He's been there, but does he still get respect? Maybe there's bitterness, He's like, yeah, now I'm behind the scenes just throwing rockets around. So you can definitely read into that character. I like that. So I'll champion Worms. He's creepy.
It's true.
2 votes Munisha, 1 vote Worms. What's Paul gonna do?
I'm gonna agree with you guys on Munitia in that she is.
Oh.
No. I haven't said
Wait,
through
wait,
yet.
wait.
I'm gonna agree with you guys in that she is mostly an improvement on the original artwork, and not that there's also once again not that there's anything wrong with the original artwork. It's cool. In fact, I'm actually totally okay with them giving her a gun in the new one, but apparently they didn't want to use too much plastic. A big thing that irritates me on the Munitia artwork is actually the button, the device in her hand. In visual design, you talk about like contrast and harmony and how both things need to be balanced. And I just find with the fact that that beeper is bending inwards and not outwards and not adding to her silhouette is actually hurting it. It's actually flattening the whole piece of the artwork there where it is. And it also looks awkward, and her thumb is definitely missing. I mean, she's either pushed that thing so hard she's broken it in her hand, or she doesn't have a thumb and she's like all fumbles. I don't know. That's just the vibe I get from it.
But Paul, I disagree with you about all of that. But anyways, maybe I'm just blinded by that explosion.
Yeah, maybe. But
I think if the detonator, if we're calling it a detonator, not a cell phone. Or it could be both, I suppose. If it was poking out, that might look a little awkward. I think this is a triumph in adapting an old artwork seamlessly.
I don't know. I just feel like it takes it away. Like it hurts the silhouette. But that's just how I feel about it. I mean, I'm there's no wrong or right answer with regards to this. It's a matter of where I'm coming. Like I wouldn't do that. It would feel like for me it would feel like a fake out. And actually, for me, I would be scared of doing that because it actually creates more work because you have to do a lot more contrasty painting behind it to make it pop out more. And it's just more work. It's just easier to put it in the silhouette. Which brings me to, the worms. I dig that, dude. I think that is such a cool artwork. And Adam Richards actually gave me one of these prints at JoeCon of the worms. Yeah. It is so cool. And I love how like haunting and menacing that face is. It's like it's sad and scary at the same time. It's probably also Chris's face behind the helmet.
Same eyes.
Same eyes, yeah.
They're just zoomed in really close. That's all it is.
But I dig it. I think it's such a cool artwork. And I think it's so well handled. It's just so subtle in terms of the button press on it. I mean, like, you got so many artworks, and it's the same thing that I liked about the Dark Lawn. It's not this guy like jumping out at you going, "I'm a bad guy." He's just casually going, "White House, it's gone." Wow. Notre Dame. Oh wait, too soon. Jesus. GI Joburg base, it's gone. You know what I mean? Like, I dig him about that. Yeah, no, the Notre Dame thing is actually devastating. And as Steve said in the beginning,
Jesus,
you can leave that part out.
In the beginning of this episode, art is important, and the way that we all feel about Notre Dame proves to us exactly that fact. That art is important to us as a civilization, as a species. But yes, this Worms officer is just gold. I love it. I love it so much. I actually, I kind of wish I had the original as well, just to compare it to, because they did. I mean, the original figure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is golden. I love it, and this should definitely go through. There's nothing wrong with this artwork. The foot in the back is a little bit funny, but maybe we'll see what happens in round 2 of this. But yeah.
Team Ascot stronger.
And maybe I've been brainwashed.
Have I got the swing here as well?
You absolutely do.
Yes, you do.
Ooh, cliffhanger.
Brick. Okay, yeah, everyone knows where I'm going with this. So the Munitia one I really like. I think it's really dynamic. I think it's pretty awesome how they've used a character again that was in the Plague, just like Guillotine, who I didn't mention that before. Should have done. I'll beat myself afterwards. Don't worry. And with not off, I'll just beat myself. So the Munitia artwork, I agree on those small points that Paul was saying about. I do find the phone really awkward. Like, is it a flip phone? Because that's the only way it would fit in a hand like that, in my opinion. Also, I just think it would not necessarily sticking out of her silhouette, but maybe if it was just in the right position in her hand upright, that with maybe just like the aerial poking out, and also make it so that you can actually see it.
Hang on. Though it sounds like you've made up your mind already. But I mean, is the included accessory not the famed Firefly phone?
I can't remember.
So the bottom end does.
So it's kind of bent anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's accurate to the toy.
And I still feel that it looks awkward. And I know that if you're doing it realistically, then tough shit. If it looks awkward, it looks awkward. But I think, you could always hold it so that the phone is slightly more upright. It just doesn't look right to me. Even if that's the shape of the phone, it doesn't quite vibe very well. And I think even if she was holding it at the middle of the phone, so that you could see both, you could see the angle behind her hand almost, I think that would probably be even better as well. But having said that, it's only a minor gripe. I do like the art, and I think what they did in terms of an upgrade based on the original is probably an improvement. And I know obviously they've had to change a lot of aspects of it to make it kind of closely resemble the newer version, as we've said before. But no, I really dig it. I think it's really cool, really dynamic. And I was going to also agree with what Steven said. I feel like, when you said, she's pressing a detonator, immediately my eyes it kind of fills all the blanks, and you see the explosion going off behind her, and it's almost like that happened almost animated. You know what I mean? Like, and when she presses it, and it's kind of like really cool. Now, Worms, obviously this is Worms Officer, and so differs slightly to the original Worms, who's got more of a kind of, he doesn't have like what are those trousers called that stick out the sides?
Jodhpurs.
Is it jodhpurs? Military jodhpurs? But like military, like the
pantaloons. I just wanted to say pantaloons.
I'm gonna sticky out pants. Hopefully that doesn't sticky out trousers. Let's see what comes up. Nothing. Brilliant. So so obviously the original has more, I suppose, practical for sitting in a maggot kind of design. But most of the rest of it, other than like a little strap that goes across the...
They totally are jodhpurs, by the way.
Okay, sorry.
Jodhpurs. For anyone who wanted to wear her.
I thought jodhpurs were riding pants, but I suppose they are as well, aren't they?
They are, but if you have military jodhpurs, you'll find those kind of billowy outwards styles.
Such an odd design. Such an odd design. Let's do an episode on jodhpurs and how weird they are. But so the original figure has he has a strap going across his chest, going from his belt. And obviously that's just a Worms driver. He's the maggot driver, and this is a Worms officer. So this guy deals with, blowing using his iPad. Now, the fun thing about this particular thing was that Adam's brief was, we want him pressing a button, and that was it. So he's like, well, what the f*** do I do with that? How do I make that dynamic and interesting and all that kind of stuff? And I think what he did was the absolute best perfect thing he could ever do, and that was to have the missile coming over his shoulder. And actually, I'm surprised Paul didn't talk about this, but that's where the lighting is emanating from. It's usually like, sometimes they'll have the light source everywhere on some of this art, and it's kind of like coming from every angle, and it's almost like the back explosion is lighting them from behind in a way. But with this one, he's actually used the lighting from the actual missile kind of tail to light up that corner of the body more so than the other side, and I just find that really, really powerful. Every detail is incredible. It's just every crease, and it's just beautiful, and the slightly kind of strained perspective from above looking down. I think it's really, really good for what he was asked to do. If we're going art to art again, if we're doing kind of what do I think is the best piece of art, I'm going with Worms, and I apologise, but I think it's one of my favourite ever things Adam's ever done.
Incredible. And I look forward to talking about Worms more in the quarterfinals, which will be a lightning round. We are heading into our quarterfinal lightning round.
Stop giving me more work to do.
Oh, I'm cutting your work out.
Oh, that's
man.
actually very
I'm
true.
doing
yeah.
it live.
It did actually
Freestyle.
it sounded like a real lightning strike.
I
Yeah.
had to look outside my window to make sure it wasn't.
But before we move on to the quarterfinals, let's do a quick recap of what you've just listened to, because if you're anything like me, your head must be spinning. There were a lot of artworks and a lot of just went down. In our first battle, Lego Spaceman, aka Black Spider Rendezvous, gave Guillotine the chop.
Sad face. Sad eyes. If you look at Guillotine's eyes now, they're sad as opposed to angry before.
In the second battle, Coils of Doom turned Charbroil to ash.
Nice!
In the third battle, Payload blasted General Flag out of the airlock. In battle number 4, Night Stalker's commander pointed Hello Point to the dawn. Whoa. Thank God for the edit.
I like how you called it Hallow as well. Like that's his actual name now.
It'll go down in infamy. Crosshair gave Verona a pretty little head shot. Yeah, I know, they can't all be winners. Kangor delivered a knockout punch on Darklon.
Nice.
Ghost Rider melted Sub-Zero. And finally, Worms Officer detonated Munitia.
Fantastic.
Oh, thank you very much. Not quite a rap, but, you know, I did try.
Did he push a button?
Damn it, that was a good one.
You flicked my button.
We're going to head into our infamous quarterfinal lightning round, which I always cooked up just to move things along, because, Jesus, after the openers, we always need a little bit more pace. I am going to make it a lightning round with a difference, though, because I think these artworks demand at least a little qualifier. And this is going to be challenging for all of us to try and limit ourselves, but you have
One word.
I'm gonna allow a sentence. You have to pick your winner lightning fast, but also give me something.
Okay, and we're all saying it at the same time.
Well, that would be interesting. You want to try?
Good luck editing that.
So first up, we've got Black Spider Rendezvous versus Coils o' Doom. I suppose this had to happen sooner or later, that these two these old school adventure team style artworks came head to head. Black Spider Rendezvous versus Coils o' Doom. Give me a sentence, give me your winner.
A good beard game will take you only so far. At the end of the day, the Cherry Coke Vanilla Sky with a guy dressed as a mellow yellow is going to take it from me.
Jeez, that's setting a bit of a high watermark for the rest of us.
Who did you choose? I was so confused by the end of that sentence.
Coils of Doom. Coils
Okay,
of Doom,
sorry.
dude.
My bad. Got it.
Beers are cool, but the sky's better.
Space Monkey, if you're asking.
It was an amazing sentence. It just completely, like, you used too many words. Too many big
Fox
words.
Strikes Back.
Too many big words, mate.
Creature has the big mind, my man.
Paul,
Cheers,
who's
brother.
it going to be for you, brother?
Ooh, it's a tricky one, but on the scale of Supersonic Fighters Road Pig, the Black Widow Rendezvous is better than that artwork, whereas Coils of Doom is not as good as Supersonic Fighters Road Pig's artwork, and that's why Black Widow will make it through.
Wow, we're tied up. One each. Chris, what you got, brother?
That's it. This, oh my god, one sentence. What the are you doing to me? There we go. Coils of Doom. You got a sentence. It wasn't related, but you got a sentence.
I will accept.
I'm leaving all of that in there, by the way. That's all.
Nice. Robbie, who's it going to be, brother? Are you going to tie it up again? Making me the decider? You I'm going to make things easier on me.
Well, unfortunately, that's just the way things go, because I really enjoy the way that Adam pulled this one out. It looks absolutely incredible. I'm going with Coils of Doom.
Bam!
Throw that snake.
Thank you. You've saved me having to embarrass myself with trying to find a sentence to put Coils of Doom through. Bam! Coils of Doom progresses to the semi-finals. Lightning round, quarterfinal, round number 2. It's Payload versus the Night Stalker's Commander. And I'm going to call upon Chris for his I sentence.
I am gonna have to go with Payload on this one, because it's the fact that we've got a brand new card back that we haven't seen before. We've got the night sky and all that kind of stuff, and it's just beautiful.
Indeed. And congratulations, that was a complete and congruent sentence.
It's the only one you're getting.
Cooge, you got some more poetry for us, man?
Maybe not so tight. The Night Stalker Commander's shoulders are too wide for me. And honestly, Rich just needs to get some less attractive friends. Or maybe before they send you their picture, tell them to take a couple laps, roll around in the dirt, maybe howl at the sky. Then you might get that intensity you're looking for. I think you got to go with Payload because of that crispy sky. Enough said.
Hang on. I don't think Adam was responsible for the Night Stalker's Commander.
No?
No, he wasn't.
Oh.
Wasn't he?
Oh.
No. But it looks
My
like
God.
his style.
Well, it does give me a little bit of a Bruce Timm kind of body shape. But I do think that the skin needs to be a little more shadowier. That's all.
That's 2 votes for Payload. And the next person I want to hear from is Paul.
In space, no one can hear the Night Forces commando scream because Payload takes it all the way, being a superb artwork and a better artwork, and yeah,
Winner.
being Payload. Winner. Winner,
That's
winner,
3 votes.
Payload's freeze-dried ice cream chicken dinner.
We got 3 votes for Payload so far. This is in danger of being a clean sweep.
I got it.
Who's also a GI Joe.
I got it.
Unfortunately, I'm a sucker for a pretty face, and I think this Night Stalker Commander is pretty, and wearing practical clothes. Night Stalker Commander would have got it from me.
No, we know.
Well, okay, you will be the sole dissenting vote, Rob, because I'm going to go Payload's way as well. And my sentence is just a term, really, and it's called Star Brigade. Oh, yeah. Payload progresses to the semis. Oh, yeah.
Semis, lol.
In space, no one can hear your semi.
In space, no one can touch your semi. That's a good one. I like that.
Okay, we're using your one. Quarterfinal number 4, we have Crosshair versus Kangor.
God.
First up, it's Cooge again. Cooge, is that you?
I think I'm just going to say that Kangor has more fluidity. I like his pose. Crosshair is just boring to me.
Yowza. Are we in for an upset? Well, what says Paul?
Ooh, Crosshair loves hunting kangaroos, and that's why he puts a lead one square in between the eyes of Kangor and tries desperately to move on to the next round for me.
It's going to be tight.
Kangor is just too hilariously funny not to put through.
Oh,
Love me
my
some
word.
boxing.
Oh, jeez. Am I becoming somewhat of a swing? No, I'm not. I'm going to throw one in for Crosshair. Bam!
Oh, brilliant. So I have to decide out of Crosshair and Kangor who is going through. Do I go with the beautiful
Friendship
rendition of Crosshair by Adam Riches, or do I go with the hilarious Kangor artwork? I'm going to have to sway it with... Adam's got enough going on. Let's have Kangor go through.
Oh, my word. Wow. I never would have smelt that coming.
That's an awkward episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Right there.
Could you imagine if Kangor won the whole thing? Like that could happen. He could, at this stage, he's in with a shout.
I'm trying to stop that from happening. I've seen the future.
Kangaroo steaks for everybody. Yeah.
Ow, ow, ow.
Tastes kind of like ostrich, actually. I mean, not that point of comparison means anything to anyone, really. But quarterfinal number 4, it's Ghost Rider versus Worms Commander. Worms Officer. Whatever. Commanders, officers. Jeez, just call it Worms. Paul,
got
which way
Worms.
you gonna... Yeah, indeed. Paul, which way are you going to go on this one?
Ooh, I love Ghost Rider's jacket, but Worms just pushes the right buttons for me.
Nice. You've used my idea.
Fuck. I mean, poop.
I always liked a man with a good scarf and one that can work well in the kitchen. Worms takes it for me.
I thought you were going to say Ghost Rider because he's got a scarf.
They both have scarves.
They both have scarves. See, I tricked you.
I'm going to go Ghost Rider.
You love the cockiness, don't you? It reminds you of someone you know.
I love the details, to be honest. Blame the figure design for it, really. But, I mean, they didn't have to include the Ghost Rider or the X-19 sort of unit patch, but Adam did, and he's winning big points in my book for that. Plus, I cannot understand the physics of Worm's Officer. There is a cheat happening in order to fit the projectile onto the card and have it so close to the camera.
This is a very long sentence.
That thing must... Okay, shut up, Stephen. Cut that. I vote Ghost Rider. Bam.
That is all staying in, by the way.
No discipline. I just wanted to say it in case Worm scrubbed out on this run, but it doesn't look like he's going to. Next up, I want to hear from you, Chris.
I love both of these pieces of art, and it's quite a shame that they're both going head-to-head at this stage. I could have seen this as like a final very easily. But I'm really going to have to give it to Worms. I know you have that issue with the missile and everything, Stephen. You think it's a cheat. I actually think it's kind of inspired. So I'm quite happy that he was able to do that, and I absolutely love Worms. Worms goes through. Yay!
Oh, not quite yet.
It's 3-1.
Oh.
Well, 1, son.
Damn it.
If my maths is correct, Stephen.
I think it is. But I am still curious
You
to
know
hear
I'm
what
Team
Cujo-
Ascot.
Whoa.
Yeah, I missed which way you went, Cooge.
Because he hadn't gone yet.
Well, I hadn't gone yet, but
Yeah.
I roll with Worms, of course.
That's the best sentence. That is the best sentence I've ever heard. I roll with worms. The visuals there are amazing, aren't they?
That's the tagline for this episode. Roll with worms.
I'm saving all my good Worms information for the final round.
Cujo believes in worms.
All right, gentlemen. Semi-final. Round 1. It's getting exciting now. It's time for Coils of Doom versus Payload.
This is a really tough one because I really like Coils of Doom is fantastic. I think it's kind of, at least from all the pieces that I've ever seen from Adam, it feels very unique in the way that he's kind of mimicking that older style of the Adventure Force
team,
the Adventure Team, the Adventure Team packaging. With a more painterly style. Because I mean, his style is always very crisp. It's very realistic, but this kind of strikes a balance between that and more of like the older style. And I really, really absolutely, I applaud him for that because it just looks so unique, but still looks like an Adam Reach's penis. Okay.
What am I going to flash up on the screen for that?
I thought you guys were close.
Real
Not
close.
that close. Trip to the men's room close.
Snapchat. Have to get him on Snapchat.
Snapchat pic
Premium.
coming up. Yeah, brilliant.
Sparkles.
And then on the other side, we have a piece that I haven't voted for once. This entire round, this entire voting thing. I really appreciate it. I think it's incredible the detail that he's managed to put in there and make it look like, yeah, this man is floating in space. I mean, that's what I think. But I can't give it a payload. I don't like no payloads. I want my Coils of Doom.
You want your loads free, don't you? That's what you're saying.
Exactly. I want my freeloads. I want a freeload.
All right.
I don't want to pay for them.
First blood has been drawn, and it's Coils of Doom with 1 vote. That means I'm up next. I'm going to keep this interesting. I'm going to give my vote to Payload. They're both extremely fresh in terms of card artwork. You would think that Coils of Doom is a standalone in sort of breaking the explosion convention, but Black Spider Rendezvous and Payload also go into that territory. And there's something really, 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 really good and really unique about the Starfield. I think it's one of those artworks that, the more you look at it, the more layers are revealed to you. It's not just, white pinpricks of light on a black card, there is depth to it. And as you pointed out in our first round, Chris, you can see the sort of clusters of stars. There's lighter blues, darker blues. I look like I'm peering up into a night sky, out in the sticks, basically, where, there's less light pollution. You can see a star field. But on top of that, you've got some awesome effect happening out there in the cosmos. And then you're drawn to the subject, this brilliant sort of shades of white on a blackish bluish background. It's accurate to the figure and it makes sense. I mean, I was never on board with Data Viper. I think this is perhaps Payload's finest hour, actually.
Agreed.
Payload gets my votes. Sorry, Coils. I guess I'm an astronaut at heart.
Apparently so.
Well, I would have to say, I mean, they're both brand new. They're both interesting. They're both beautifully drawn and painted. But Payload gets it for me, for that truly incredible rendered night sky, as you were saying, Stephen. And also, just for, making a character who doesn't always get a lot of shine, making him even cooler than he already is, on on that, low-level kind of coolness. I know he obviously comes with the Defiant, as we know with Hardtop, but those two figures are often very, not to say throw away, but they're very forgotten almost, because that playset is so incredible and mental and huge, and they all use it. So in the same way that Steamroller's forgotten a little bit from the Mobile Command Center, in the way that, a lot of figures do kind of get dwarfed by their vehicles, the drivers often do get dwarfed by them. So I just love the fact that Payload's been given this extra cool level. I feel bad because Coils O' Doom is so beautifully done, gorgeous painting. It's a new character, and it's kind of bringing new life to the brand. But if we're talking about the artwork and what I prefer, I have to go with Payload.
It occurs to me, is this perhaps the first individual card art we've had of Payload?
Yeah, they did a bio piece of art for him, but I've got the books from Carson. I'm just going to give them a quick run through, because I think there was almost like they uncovered a lot of vehicle driver artwork at one stage. I'm just going to see if Payload's in there, but carry on without me and I'll let you know after the fact.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a very unique card, but you've heard enough from me. Let's have a word from Cujo.
All right. Well, in this matchup, it's kind of a tale of two skies, really. And maybe D80, if you want to do a slow zoom on Coils of Doom right now, just over his shoulder. I have to go with Coils of Doom because, honestly, I'm tired of space. But, no, I think Coils of Doom, he should be the most dangerous thing in the picture. But his eyes are dead, so you're almost looking past him. Sometimes when you look into the abyss, it looks kind of purple and blue. I think the most intimidating thing in this picture is the sky. I think that's something to celebrate. I'm going to go with Doom on this one.
Cool.
We are tied up. Oh, my word. Paul, you're the swing
No, I'm going to break it. Yeah, jeez. And, as luck would have it, my PDF viewer has just gone funny on me. So now I can't even look at the artworks in detail, but I know what I want to say because I've been staring at them. I think sharp-eared listeners might know where I'm going to go with this. I like both of these artworks, and I think they both have great market value, and they kick all kinds of butt. But. Yes, but. Payload had, two, little issues which at this part of the battle matter. The first issue is, I give Adam kudos for trying to get this right, but his forearms, particularly his left forearm or the viewer's right hand side forearm, looks like it's broken. It looks snapped. It doesn't read very well dynamically. It looks broken to me, which is something that has always caught my eye with this artwork, but I've neglected to mention it in earlier battles because I wanted him to get through. And secondly, I know the club obviously meant well with this attachment on the figure, and it's something on the toy that hurts the artwork, but he's got retaliation roadblocks belt that holds his gunchaku stuff or whatever it's called.
Gun kata
stuff. Yeah. So it's that belt that, if you guys are familiar with Retaliation's roadblock figure, it's where his little knuckle dusters go and whatever. So that just really irritates me. It's a bit of an eyesore for me on the artwork. it's not Adam's fault. It's just what toy looks like. He couldn't just like not put it there, and that kills it for me. And also, Coils of Doom is rendered with real paint, and I'm not trying to be like an elitist or something. It's just
You can't help it.
Yeah, it's got that. It's just got that traditional painting quality to it. So even if it was painted digitally, it looks traditional, which I appreciate, and that's also because the toy and the packaging and the art direction of that toy allowed for that to happen, and I just like that kind of art direction. And if you like something, you support that thing, so you hopefully can see more of that thing. And I would like Coils of Doom to slither on into the next round.
Wow.
Or throw a snippet.
Can I also add, I have an answer for you, Stephen, on the payload scenario.
So
Shoot. Give us your payload.
This particular version of payload has never had like a full card art that has been necessarily seen. It might exist out there, but we've only got that kind of little bio cut out. But he has had another version of himself in Star Brigade in '94.
The second wave of Star Brigade. Yeah, dude. Those were...
Yeah, and obviously on that is a full piece of card art for him, obviously in a completely different design.
I have Adam Riches to thank for alerting me to those second series of Star Brigade figure artworks, because they are huge. Like, you can see the entire artwork on those cards. So that is a triumph of the latter day card designs.
Yeah,
I
some
think
really nice art as well. Yeah, totally.
Well, he pointed me to the Ozone artwork,
gorgeous, yeah,
which is good, but I'd say Adam went a step better, because like in space, like it seems on that Ozone artwork that Ozone is kind of charging towards you, but there is no kind of topography that he's drawn on. Like, there's no like lunar surface in the artwork, so one assumes he's kind of spacewalking, and his pose kind of becomes
J.J. Abrams.
His pose becomes kind of bogus as a result. So in a roundabout way, in parting, I'd like to pay a compliment to the artwork that is now bowing out, which is Payload's. That Payload looks like he's legitimately spacewalking. He's kind of got that.
Oh, he definitely has that. Yeah.
Zero gravity hover to him. And Paul, like, I take your points that the arm looks broken. I would explain it away as the fact that, like, we went to the Smithsonian. We saw how bulky astronaut suits are. Like, you can have your limb quite comfortably inside, the sleeve of that thing without even touching the sides. It's kind of got its own.
Oh, totally.
Vienna down a passageway.
A black hole, you might say.
So it doesn't have to necessarily look strictly anatomically correct. It's got bulk to it. It's kind of in there. Anyway.
No, I get that. It's just there is something about it that does tweak my eye, and it has bugged me. And I am trying to be objective about it as much as a human being can be. But I mean, at this point in the game, I just felt that, like, okay, well, those niggly things, those are the things that are gonna matter, when it gets to crunch time like this. And also
gun cutter.
Gun cutter. And then but there is something about Payload's artwork, and it takes me back to my nursery school days. My grandparents bought me a very, very cool book on space exploration. It's a little book. I think it was done by Golden Books or something. I think it came with a tape as well, and it's like red, and it's also got an astronaut in the middle of the book in pretty much the same pose as this Payload is.
Are you saying he copied it? Is he completely ripped the image? Because that would be hilarious, wouldn't it, if we found that out?
Well, to be honest, dude, I mean, like, if you're doing that kind of image, I mean, astronauts can't look more dynamic than that. You know what I mean? It's like, but it did definitely bring back that image. It brought that image back to me, which I dig, and it hit a nostalgia button in a weird way. It just made me go, oh, cool. Yeah, that's actually why I saw it in the Google search. Why, as you've heard earlier, why it popped out to me. And it was also, it just reminded me of that book. And I really want to try and dig up that book, because I know I've got it. I saw it the other day, actually. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you, Coils. Goodbye, Payload. You brave soldier, you.
Semi-final number 2. It's Kangor versus Worms Officer.
Oh,
and I'm up first.
Get real.
Okay, this is the last you're gonna hear of it from me, because I don't want to hop, but moving from top to bottom on Worms, there are three things that pull me out from this being, one of my all-time favorites, which it has to be.
I swear, if you go Kangor, I quit.
You put Kangor through, Chris.
No pressure.
You're right. You are. I'm going to kill myself for this.
Okay, so top of the artwork, top right-hand corner of Worm's artwork. It's a fantastic concept, and I thought about this a lot when considering this artwork. Like, it is such a fresh pose, and there is no other way to execute it unless you're going to make the projectile very, very small. But I almost would have preferred that because it would have sold the scaling of the image to me. The projectile being that close to his shoulder, like, I don't understand the physics of the artwork, and that will always kind of detract from me. I like to understand an artwork's narrative. I like for it to tell me a sort of clear story. If you take the projectile away, he's just pushing a button. So that also isn't the answer. I guess what I'm saying is, like, I kind of wish, as in the case of the Treadmark and Desert Fox, I almost wish that in the background somewhere there was a parked tank.
A maggot.
And it was a maggot, exactly. And it was firing a shell. But then you'd have this, like, would the maggot be sort of somehow in the sky? As I say, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I could not find a more elegant solution than what Adam did, but it's still going to bother me. And at this stage of the game, as bizarre as it sounds, I'm going to take this ridiculous artwork with the kangaroo just kind of, stuck in the front there, because I understand the physics of it more, as ridiculous as it is, than I do Worm's Officer.
Why did I put kangaroo?
The mental gymnastics.
Your fault, Chris.
It is. I take full responsibility for this situation, because I'd rather have Crosshair being put through by Stephen, because I know he would have put Crosshair through.
Yeah, you're absolutely
This
right.
is all my fault, and I think we should go back to when I was given that opportunity, and we should change it and just re-record everything.
Chris,
I'm kidding.
There are four other respondents in the room. Your hopes of seeing Worms in the final are not dashed yet, my man. But I'm going to weigh in for Kangor. Bam.
Cool. So, in that case, I'm going to completely wipe out what Stephen just said then, because that was just all ridiculous. If you're gonna criticize the Worms narrative and say very little about the hilarity that is going on that Kangor card, then I'm afraid, I'm going Worms 1000% here. Just mainly because Adam, because I suppose knowing the background of the decision behind it is that the brief was he was asked to just, it needs to be pressing a button. There was nothing in the brief said there was going to be a projectile involved in play. So could you imagine how mundane and kind of pointless it may have looked at him just pushing on an iPad? It would have looked without any kind of, I don't know, kind of action happening. And I know what you're saying about, the size of the projectile and all that kind of stuff, but I feel that was a kind of inspired way of getting around the problem for me. But that aside, I don't look at that artwork and I'm not pulled out of it, if you know what I mean. I kind of look at it and I enjoy every aspect of it, and it's pleasant to my eyes. I love the perspective of him too. I love it how it's not just, from like mid-range up the body directly in front. It's like slightly up higher, looking down, and I kind of like that aspect of it too. The detail in the actual render of all of his clothing, and the proportions are on point. The helmet looks awesome. Everything about this, just as soon as I saw this piece of art, I was like, yeah, this is my favorite so far of what Adam's done. And that's actually quite a big, bold claim, considering the amazing things that he has done over the years. Like, I think 50 plus, maybe 50 something pieces of art for the figure subscription line, which, well, for the club in general is
some
amazing.
fire for the finals.
Yeah.
So yeah,
looking that way.
I'm throwing Worms up for this one.
Oh, it's gonna all be on Rob's shoulders, hey?
I could break a couple ways, but I'm gonna actually do a little improv scene. Got the Cobra Mess Hall, officers table. These are arrogant snakes. You got Cobra Officer from early on. You got, let's just throw Ice Viper Officer in there because it's relevant. And you probably got a Crimson Guard. They're decorated. And then you got Worms Officer coming up. Yeah, he's past his prime, but he deserves a spot. Everybody kind of looks at him. Somebody says, "Hey, pass the mustard." You know, it's a joke. He looks down at the officer and he's like, "How'd you get decorated? You throw a lucky pineapple in a foxhole?" He's like, "Look, your emblem's going to rub off in 5 minutes." Goes to the ice viper. "Dude, you look chubby on your card art." Enough said. And then he goes to the Crimson Guard. "Oh, you guard money? You want to know what money looks like? Cobra Civil War." "Yeah, that's why I'm decorated." I think Worms Officer, he's moving on. You know he's moving on.
That was amazing. I love that little scene.
Thanks, brother.
I'm going to get that animated and put it on the video.
That would be incredible.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, unfortunately.
Still, I mean, it's yeah. Anyway,
I don't know, Cooch, can you put together some line art for that?
Brother, my hands are busy right now. You know that.
Always.
Ooh.
Freeloads.
Pushing buttons.
Paul, what say you, my man?
Okay, so like I don't want to blow my whole wad here because I'm hoping that my chosen artwork makes it to the final and I'd like to still have something significant to say about it. But it's funny how the Worms and the Kangor artworks actually have the same problem. Because the Kangor one is, well, we got Kangor and he's about to like backhand the poor kangaroo because the kangaroo's trying to get into his shot. He's all like, "Get out of my shot," you know? And the Worms has like launched this missile. And it's also, it's two things that have been popped in there to try to add more. Oh, wow. I love it when I forget words. I'm drawing a blank. It's just to give it some more coherence, more consistency. Just to give it something, you know, I love it when I forget these words. Anyway, I'm sure by now everybody who's listening to this podcast is like, "Damn it, it's this word." But yes,
Stuff.
I doubt it.
You got us all guessing, dude.
It tells the story. It makes sense. It tells us why it's there. Personally, I think the Worms artwork could actually do without the missile. I think it gives it enough. Wow, there's that word I need again. It's enough without the missile, actually. To me, it's kind of like he's pressing a button. It's kind of the same thing that Firefly has for himself. It's just, there's something about it. Or should I say Night Landing Craft? You know, there's something happening, but it's not enough to be like super action-packed, but it's enough to create a story. Like for me, having the missile on the Worms card art is almost saying, "Oh, he's just shooting a missile." You know, I know that if I had to try and fix this, I would definitely try to include a bit of the maggots into the artwork, and it can be done. But the problem with the maggot is that it's a big brown vehicle. It's got a lot of like is the maggot blue? Why do I keep thinking it's brown?
Grey, isn't it?
Anyway.
Isn't it like a big grey colour?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a grey one. But anyway, so it's this big grey vehicle, and it's got a lot of like, you know, sort of empty, broad, detailless edging. So it's difficult to like identify that from seeing like 15th of the vehicle on the artwork. So like I can see where the compromise came in. But with that all being said, I really hope that after Kangor slaps his kangaroo companion, the SPCA and Peter combine to take him out of this round so that Worms can make it to the next one. Because I love you, Worms. You're such a good artwork. Everybody said such great things about you. I agree with them. And I think you're one of Adam Rich's best contributions to the FSS line. Damn it, I blew my wad.
All right. Seems Worms is progressing anyway, but cap us off, Chris.
Oh, I've done mine.
Rob.
Oh.
Stephen, we're on 5. We're on 5.
Okay.
Time to seal.
This is day 4. Worms is going through, but cap us off, Robbie.
Well, I think getting Kangor this far was amazing. I think he went a lot further than anyone ever thought he could have gone.
Let's just call it a joke that backfired.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It went a bit further than it should have. I really do like the artwork. I mean, there is a story going on there. It's interesting. It's cool, but there's just so much character to the Worms artwork. I mean, from the stories Cujo can tell about it, and just looking at him, I mean, even just he does feel like an older gentleman more than like kind of like a new rough and tumble boy in the army. And I like that you can kind of see a bit of his chin and his neck. underneath the helmet, between there and the neckerchief
How does he
thing.
shave?
I don't know. He doesn't. He does.
He does.
He takes the helmet off. He shaves. Yeah, he takes it off.
Also gets the hose again. Carry on.
And I just really enjoy the character that's in this piece. And as Paul said, he got this as a print in real life from JoeCon, and I got to see this print in real life, and it still pops even at a bigger size in real life. It looks fantastic. I would have Stephen will have to be the dissenting vote in this round. Worms almost got a clean sweep.
Wow, we have not had one clean sweep in this entire battle. It's been very, very divided. Perhaps a credit to, it's testimony to the kind of artwork we've been seeing. Kangor notwithstanding. What can I say, guys? I love me a roux, especially medium rare.
Tastes like
Bit of Barbie sauce with a bit of Barbie.
But gird your loins, boys. It's time for the final round. Everybody do some explosions.
How do you gird loins? Sorry, I forgot to do an explosion instead. I posed a stupid question.
You gotta get a Mike Tyson. What's the thing? Yeah, you gotta get a girder.
Oh, you mean George Foreman grill?
Yeah.
A Mike Tyson grill is basically just something. I'm not even going to get into that because it could get really, really bad. Yeah, that's hilarious. By the way, I want to somehow Photoshop an advert with Mike Tyson over George Foreman for that. That's going to be perfect.
You just gotta do the facial tattoos. Bam.
My new grill has a thing for ears.
Extra crunchy.
I hope he doesn't listen because then we're all gonna die.
No, he feels really bad about his whole career, man. He's like, he's in a zen state now. He'll probably laugh.
I just want to raise my pigeons in peace. All right,
Firing
guys.
a flare gun.
Gentlemen, we've finally reached our final round. It's taken some doing to get here, but
6 days
and a lot of tears. But out of the final 4 figure subscription service series' card artworks and the final 12, it's all come down to this. It's Coils of Doom versus Worms Officer. First up, Paul.
Okay. Oh, jeez. Oh.
Careful.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm making a lot of noise so that I can just quickly look at these 2 artworks and just process everything. Jeez. Okay, so it's gonna be Worms, and there's a really, really good reason for it, because between these 2 artworks, Worms still has. They both have great dynamism. There actually aren't any major mistakes on either of them, to be honest. Although that snake could look a little different. I know you guys all harp on about the sky, but it's the only thing that hurts me a little bit when I look at the Coils of Doom artwork, to be very honest. But Worm still has some really great sort of texture and paint stroke detail in it. And that just elevates it quite a bit for me. It takes it a bit further than some of his other offerings. And it's going to be Worms for me. It totally is. And it's not because he gave me the print for free or anything like that. It is a fantastic artwork. They are both fantastic artworks. I just think the Worms is just that little bit better. At least
Chris, what say you, brother?
Funny enough, Paul mentioned the snake. That's something that hasn't come up yet. And I must admit, too, I would definitely maybe kind of widen the top part of the neck and the head a little bit more. And if we're going to give any kind of, kind of like composition or structural, or a visual kind of critique here, which we have to because it's art, for Christ's sake. But if the snake had just been a little bit more exaggerated at the top half of its head, just to give it more of that kind of cobra kind of feeling, then I'd probably be going for Coils of Doom right now. As it is, I just think that Worms art is so, like Paul was saying, consistently constructed. So everything is so good about it in one piece. I just think it's fantastic. like what he's managed to do in a short space, and also tell a story and kind of be inspired to make something out of that brief. So I would have to go with Worms on this one, and only because of that slight detail on Coils, because everything else about that Coils artwork is gorgeous, and the fact that it's painted, mwah, beautiful. Two very worthy finalists, I must admit.
Also, I would love to get some insight from Adam and find out how heavily briefed he was for the Coils artwork as well.
I can tell you.
Okay, but wait, hold on. Let me say what I want to say, and I want to see if it's sort of in line with what actually happened.
We'll go.
I got a feeling that he was given quite a bit of freedom on the Coils of Doom figure as well, in terms of like what he could do with it to try and sell it. Because it doesn't feel as heavy-handed from an art directing point of view. Like the Worms as well. The Worms also feels like they gave him quite a bit of carte blanche, and then when they looked at the artwork, they were like, "This artwork needs here's that word, context. So please add a missile or something." I think that's.
Oh, you mean like a yeah, I see. I thought you meant like an actual missile sound effect, but carry on.
Oh no, missile sound effect. Yeah. So I don't know, just something about the Coils just to me tells me that he also had quite a bit of free reign on that one, that they didn't overbrief or overhandle the artwork. But that's just a feeling I get. I haven't got much evidence to support this other than it's a cool artwork and it's got a great dynamism to it.
Okay, so the truth behind what happened was that, again, the brief came in, but it was actually, rather than a description, it was an actual piece of art. They'd already done kind of mocked up version of what you're seeing there. It went through a lot of changes, but they used the cesspool head from his previous art and put it on in a similar kind of position and stance, and then Adam kind of went back to them with a few different sketch versions of like positioning and where the snake was going to be, and or to include the snake and so on and so forth. So there was I'm not saying it was the same, but they had given him quite clear brief from the off, and it was all like they coloured the clothing in, they did all of that stuff. So I think it was a piece they would have used, and then they decided at the last minute to see if Adam could do it in his style, or kind of like to see what he could do with it, because the first version wasn't great, and I don't think it would have been in the final now if we got what the club wanted to do.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes sense. That we've seen what the club can do sometimes. So, okay, cool. Theory out of the water. Okay. After me is Rob.
Well, everyone said it. They're both absolutely incredible. We know from what everyone said. The Worms picture tells an incredible story. It suggests so much. It could suggest a lot more. As Paul also said, if you just take that missile out, there's a question there. Why, what is he pressing the button for? What is he shooting? What's happening? You decide, dear child, adult person buying this $60 figure off eBay. And then there's this beautiful art piece. I mean, it still blows me away that I would love to see this as in real life. What I always really enjoy about art, a lot of the time, is the feeling of texture, of actually seeing a texture on the surface. And this feels like it has a lot of texture to it, a lot of depth. And once again, this tells also an incredible story. And I don't think it's just to do with the sky, because I think a lot of people, we have previously mentioned how much the backgrounds kind of bring so much out of the character themselves, especially with Payload and this piece. But there's so much environment, so much stuff going on here. And at least for myself, and anatomically, he looks pretty good to me. I mean, maybe his neck is a bit askew. I don't know. That's just me. But for me, it's got to be Calls of Doom. I just really enjoy that it looks more like an art piece than Worms does. Worms is almost perfect.
Ooh, shots
the
fired.
Same as all the other artwork I've ever seen.
No, that's cool, man. That's very cool.
No, I mean, I just feel like this stands out more. I think the first time I saw it, I was like, wow, it's a full art piece for the entire packaging. That is really cool. And this figure looks interesting. He feels like he has a story to tell, and I want to play with him, and I want to, get wrapped in these coils of doom.
He's like, I must.
If you play your cards right,
I must touch that snake.
Hey. Exactly. I want to touch that snake too.
So you don't feel the snake needs a more bulbous head?
No, I think its head is quite large enough as it is.
Just checking.
It's big enough for me.
I'm just measuring it to mine now, Rob, just to make sure that's okay.
No, you.
Mine's more the other guy we're dealing with here on this final. Mine's more worms than it is. Carry on.
Well, it is worms all in caps, so that's got to count for something.
It really doesn't.
It's true.
It's actually more like the vehicle he drives than his namesake.
Oh,
it's
man.
an innie. It's an innie. Carry on. Let's do this.
I gotta save us from this. Okay, it's me, and I think you know my views on Worms Officer's sort of secondary aspect, that being the projectile, and the challenges that creates to kind of fit it on the card with some prominence. You know, it has to be big enough to make a statement. You know, I don't think it would have been as strong if there was a tank parked behind him. But it does bring into question exactly on which plane it is. And I've harped on that enough, and I'm going to leave it alone. I love Worms from the waist up. It's like I need to compare these two
I'm ready for
artworks
this.
only from the waist, because, you know, that's all we're getting with Coils, and that's kind of, I'd say, the strongest half of Worms Officer. I'm not loving what his legs are doing. And at this
I
point,
was
like,
waiting for that.
nitpicks like that have to come into play. You know, we are looking at a full-length artwork, and he is kind of taking a step. I understand the physics of it, but when representing that in art, I mean, I feel like there needs to be maybe, and I don't have any art chops, but I suppose we've done this enough times for me to notice these things.
You don't need a degree in art to
Fair
pick
enough. But I mean, I do feel like I'm a total layperson trying to have some grasp on why I would vote one artwork ahead of another, which is, I suppose, the cruel and also the benefit, the cruel part and the benefit to comparing and contrasting two at once like this. They're both excellent. There's no doubt about it. They're both action figure artworks which are selling the action figure. I mean, the toys can often look absolutely clunky compared to these exquisite artworks, but it's the art that's selling you the figure. Well, more specifically in this case, it's the fact that you subscribed and paid for something that you had no idea what you were getting, you know, probably 2 years ahead of the time, and now you've finally gotten this in the mail, and you can either be pleasantly or unpleasantly surprised. But in the case of Worms, yeah, man, I feel like maybe there should be some heavier shadowing. And I watched a sort of a time lapse of Adam doing his metalhead artwork, and the amount of work that the man does on the depth and shading of the art, it's breathtaking. And it was so cool to watch that happen in kind of sped up time. And I just feel like, would it have been problematic to create a heavier brown on sort of the lower half of the artwork? Would that perhaps have elevated it slightly, or would that have detracted from it? I don't know. I can't hope to guess. But just from the waist up, oh man, I think I would have gone Worms.
Wow.
Yeah, but I'm not
This
going
is incredible.
I'm not going to, because I'm going to keep it interesting, because I want Cujo to break the
Heel
tie.
turn.
Love me. The Rocketeer helmet. I mean, the shading on that is spectacular. I love the sort of the Darth Vader lenses, and you know, you had that band of lights on both eyepiece, which, you know, should be there because you've got a strong light source blasting off right beside him. But I do like the character you get from Coils. I have to, you know, give that some justification now. You know, the kind of paintwork that's gone into his face alone is a kind of a crowd pleaser. You know, it's a world beater for me. It almost seems like he's got a case of rosacea, you know, in his skin tone.
Yeah.
There's so much to that face alone that it kind of beats all the minor nitpicks. And yes, the snake's hood could be wider. I think it certainly is on the included snake sort of toy, the accessory. But then it would mask the body of the subject. I don't know. I'm gonna put Coils through, because, as I say, I want to keep things interesting, and I could definitely get behind him should he be our ultimate winner.
Cujo for the win, then.
It's now all on the shoulders of Cooge. Oh my word! Nail biter.
West has got to handle business again. What do you know? Just playing.
Have you got another scenario for us, man?
Now let's see. I do feel like deciding vote on worms here. For those of you out there that are listening and you're on board with worms, I salute you. I think worms is one of those intersections, you know? If you look at him, maybe now and then again in 10 years, he might be somebody different. I mean, maybe he's a person who's washing dishes, you know, and he doesn't get appreciated. What could be behind the mask is what I'm saying. I think what you see is worms is you. You know, that's an iPhone. That could be a salty tweet, you know, or that could be a churlish comment, you know. And you are casual. That's our society. That's our world. How many friends you got? How many followers? It's on his chest, you know, his medals.
Whether you've been allowed
Dropping
into the green room or
spot
not.
Mm. Oh, yeah, that's been
topical.
Well, I think what you got is and Rich's rock this art, man. This is one of those legacy pieces because it does. It'll talk to you for years. But to blow the colors out on that, turn it into a shirt or something. I'll wear that.
Are you saying it should be worms, Cujo?
Well, Coils of Doom. I mean, the sky's on fire, but we can only revel in it so long, you know. I think at the end of the day, I think we're all worms, you know.
Wow.
At this point,
Had to do it.
At this point, I'd like to make light of the fact that the five of us have been part of a kind of a WhatsApp group building up towards these card art battles since the first one. So I think for about 8 months, we've had this group that we've been back and forthing on. And the group's icon or avatar for the last 8 months has been Worms Officer.
Spoiler!
Could it have something to do with this result?
Subconscious.
Maybe. I don't know. And I will say that
it wasn't Kangor.
But now for a bonus round, it's Worms versus Supersonic Fighters Road Pig.
Oh no, it should be Kangor versus Supersonic Fighters Road Pig as a side battle.
As like who came second.
I do actually have a side battle in mind, though, guys. Between our first figure subscription service card art battle and now, we've produced a finalist from each, or an ultimate winner from each.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, a winner from each and a runner-up. I want to know from you guys who our ultimate winners are. The first round, I'm going to ask you to decide between Coils of Doom, our runner-up, and our previous runner-up, Tiger Force Outback.
Oh, that's easy.
That's easy.
All right, Paul. What you got, brother?
I'm actually just busy Googling. No, I just want to make sure that I'm not talking out of my ass because it's worth mentioning that, you know, Coils of Doom is a cool artwork, and Tiger Force art's still a paint over, you know. So it is like something to take note of and to be very careful about.
Does anyone else find it interesting that Coils of Doom made it to the final for this one and Cesspool made it to the final in the last one, and they both share the same head sculpt as figures?
What can we say? We have sympathy for the ugly guy, the guy with the facial scar.
Obviously not, because Road Pig didn't get chosen. I'm just saying it now, and I'm stamping my feet as I do it.
At this point, I will reveal that Road Pig got about as many votes as Kangor, for instance, but through a process of random deselection, aka my wife reaching into the hat and pulling out the lucky losers, Road Pig was eliminated, sadly. So would he have changed the course of this entire contest?
I would have forced you all to put him into the final at gunpoint.
Hey man, I got love for Supersonic Fighters Road Pig. I don't care what y'all say. He was my definitive Road Pig.
It's beautiful.
Me too. Like, I actually thought he was going to be in there. That's why I didn't add him. But anyway.
So it's your fault.
Guys, the question at hand, though,
it is
brother.
my fault. Yeah, so now that I've had a chance to... I'm going to say Coils. Guys, it's because of one simple thing. The Tiger Force Outback is still an old artwork that's been retouched, and that's cool. But I'd rather try to push a new artwork. And it's not because there's anything wrong with the old artwork. It's just because I would like our current artists to get the credit that they deserve, because Tiger Force Outback, this artwork has gotten its credit. The Outback artwork has gotten credit. It was done by a really good painter. So I'd like to give Adam Riches this one, because I think Coils is great. And, the only thing I can harp on about Coils is the snake thing. Like, between the two, this is really a subjective opinion, because there's not one that's better than the other, if that makes sense. So I'm going to say Coils.
Mm-hmm.
This is purely subjective.
I'm going to weigh in and say that I'm going to try and disabuse my mind of all context and just, try and be, I suppose, 8 or 9-year-old me rifling through action figure cards without any history, without any, background information. And maybe this is just because I'm one of the good guys at heart, but Tiger Force Outback, it will always stand as one of the greatest of all time. So it's hard it's difficult to compare it to anything, whether it was produced 35 years ago or last year. It's a world beater, that artwork. Whoever was originally responsible, if it was one of Garrido's, the man is a legend for a reason, I guess. But it's all about the art and less about the man in this one. And I'd be picking up that Tiger Force Outback figurine.
It's so cool because I'm on Google now, obviously, and I've typed in Tiger Force Outback. And Jim Godfrey's custom that he did, for one of the Jim Godfrey customs that he did for us as GI Joburg, is the Tiger Force Outback, which I own. And it's here on Google. It's on the image search. It's actually quite easy to find. Just popped out. It's so nice. Anyway, as Stephen was talking about, which one would his childlike self buy? So there he pops up.
Bam. Chris, what are you saying, brother?
This is quite difficult because if it's the FSS card, then I think Coils O'Doom wins it for me. If it was the vintage Outback Tiger Force card art, then I would be more inclined to go with that because I love obviously I've got it's a heavy nostalgia connection for me. And I really did love that card art, and I loved not just the artwork of the actual character, but also the things around it on the original. The different lightning background and the slightly different kind of Tiger Force design card for the Euro exclusive. So I lean to the original vintage Tiger Force Outback if we were going that way. But for the FSS, I'm going to go Coils O'Doom because it's, again, for the same reasons you guys just mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Ah, man. Okay. Cooch, you closed us out last time, so I'm going to hear from Rob last. Let's hear from you now, my man.
All right. I think let's see, Purple Rain. That's how I roll. Robert?
I'll be the tiebreaker.
Oh,
no, you're not. God. What am I saying?
I'm not.
Looks like Coils is our true runner-up then.
Amazing. It truly is quite an incredible piece. I like both of them actually. I mean, there's something very heroic about Outback. He looks like he's out there, still out there, but his shirt is clean, and that's pretty cool. But Coils of Doom, I think, is still. They both have stories, but I like the more depressing story of Coils of Doom. I like the baddie.
I'd just like to interrupt with a GI Joburg special feature. GI Joburg word of the day: rosacea, also called active rosacea, a condition that causes redness and often small red pus-filled bumps on the face. It can't be treated or cured, but I'm sure you can slap on some moisturizing, whatever. Anyway, now you all know.
And knowing is doing, right?
That's the Patreons, I imagine.
I saw someone put up a t-shirt sign that said, battle divided by 2 equals knowing. I think that is rather idiotic, to be honest, because does that mean that, knowing times 2 equals battle, which means that both halves are knowing?
A battle, yeah.
Exactly.
Knowing is half the battle. The other
tweet.
half is knowing. Yeah, I know. I had to flag it. I had to comment. I was being a total, smart ass, but what can I say?
Battle divided by 2 would be bat and tull. So, there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Chris, that's addition, not multiplication. Jeez. Okay, guys. If we were to compare our 2 finalists, our 2 winners, who would win between Cesspool? Wow. And who won this one? Oh, yeah, Worms Officer. Damn.
Steve's in denial.
I'm gonna go cesspool.
Obviously.
So like that's yeah. I'm gonna open my account and just say our previous winner is my ultimate winner.
I'm going to agree with Stephen. I'm going to agree with Stephen for the first time in this entire process. I'm going to agree with Stephen.
Ever.
And I'm going to say that
Wow.
I also go with cesspool. That is just the most bad piece of artwork ever. As much as I was harping on about worms being the greatest thing Adam's ever done, I forgot about cesspool, and that's even better. You're right, Stephen.
It's balls to the wall. It's absolutely it's wild. It's wow. If I wasn't going next, I am now. It's it's cesspool.
Ooh, 3 votes cesspool. Anyone want to support the Worms officer in this final bout?
I'm gonna sit this one out.
What?
You
You can't, dude.
It's protest
He
vote, man.
can.
Protest votes.
This is anticlimactic. I picked Worms, and I want to celebrate Worms. This is about celebrating GI Joe. Come on, Admiral Akbar. Come on now.
I would just like to say that when you throw in Eco Warriors into the mix, you get a clean sweep.
Bazinga!
Oh.
What would you like me to include musically there? Do you want me to put like, or like a which one would you prefer?
I want that tuba one. It's like,
Or just like a long gap with like kind of that sound effect of like a dust bunny like floating by.
oh, and I go.
Ding,
Yeah,
ding,
to get
ding,
to-
ding.
Just because cesspool is our absolute favorite doesn't mean, it doesn't take anything away from how absolutely amazing Worms is. Worms deserves to win against the entire second half of the FSS, at least in our opinions.
No, Worms is beautiful. I really, really like that artwork, and it's got a lot of character. It was great that Steven mentioned his shiny helmet, not Steven's shiny helmet, but the shiny helmet of the Worms officer, in his appraisal of the figure. And it's a complex thing to paint, and Adam nailed it. You nailed it, Adam, if you're listening to us. Although I don't necessarily agree with needing to put in too much shadow. I feel like shadow is great for drama and stuff like that, and I think there's a lot of like bounce light on Worms. Adam really, I don't know. I think he just had a lot of fun with his artwork, and it shows, and it's definitely worthy of its position here on the podium. And I'm so glad I have the print of it. It's like it makes me super happy, and it's signed. It's awesome.
Don't you also have the print of cesspool?
I do. Yes,
Ooh,
that's one.
Because
Yeah,
if
he
you're
asked
looking
me
for a
and I was
fun
like-
artwork, I mean, that is just like bonanza, dude. That is
It
just
falls to the wall. I love
wow.
it.
Hey guys, isn't it interesting that both our ultimate runner-up, Coils of Doom, and our ultimate winner both have the same head sculpt on the figure? Hey man,
Incredible.
I said
just
that
got love
earlier.
for the ugly guy.
Did you?
Oh,
Stephen said that earlier.
No, I said it earlier,
Okay.
Rob. I said it.
Cut it. Sorry.
Chris said it earlier.
I'm leaving that in. We're getting it
I think
twice.
Paul said it earlier. I
Well,
remember
I guess-
Cujo mentioning it.
Sorry guys, the penny takes a long time to drop when it's what is the time? 6:30 in the
I
morning.
would like to say though before we go, does anyone else find it quite weird that in Cesspool and Coils o' Doom, who are like winners and runners up in the FSS, they both share the same head sculpt on the figure? Does anyone find that really weird?
We got
There is the
theory of the
Speaking
Morbius
of weirdness,
and the vertigo.
Ooh.
A twist in
Cujo.
the fabric.
allow me to put a timestamp on this. I believe, among others, Adam Riches is going to be in Georgia in late June. And I will push this because, am I right in saying, D80, that it's going to be quite a festive 2 days?
It's going to be amazing. Yes, Joe Fest.
Give the man a hug for me.
Okay, I can spare another hug. Yep.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, man.
No, hit up the if you're in proximity. This. I'm gonna wear this out. What can't you do in 2 months? You know what I mean? Get there, chat up Joe Media. Like, trust me, we'll be visible. Let's do it. Let's enjoy it. Yeah, check that out, Joe Fest, and sending good vibes to Colorado as well. It's good to see you on the men, brother. That's all I got from the West Coast. What a hell of a card battle. World War card art, if you will.
Or
You know what I'm saying? I think one of these days we definitely need to do a card art with like all of GI Joe's weird stuff, like the Manimals, and because there is card art for that.
Yep.
And the Street Fighter stuff and the Jean-Claude Van Damme Street Fighter stuff, which I think has minimal card art anyway. Now that I think about
that's
it.
just a photograph of JCVD.
That would be the quickest battle ever.
Yeah, Jean-Claude, always.
Absolutely.
No, I think that would be really cool, actually, Paul. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, because I would love to give that. Somebody actually mentioned it on Facebook, I think, Chris actually. Chris mentioned it.
Is this about Cesspool having the same head as Coils Doom again?
No. This is the other thing you said about how you're surprised none of us put Street Fighter art in our last card battle. And I just wanted to say, like, I really wanted to, but then a part of my brain was like, no, try to save it because maybe we can do, like, the Odd Bunch as an art battle one day. And I'd really like to save it for that, Or I'd really like to save this artwork for that.
Yeah,
because
sure.
there are quite a, what's interesting about this line as well is that there are different like figures for this. Like there's the stuff that we got here, in South Africa, and then there's like also the Mexican card art for this stuff. And there's like a few
Fun School.
variations.
Can Fun School step to that?
I think so. Yeah, Fun School can totally step to that mix.
And we got a lot of European retouches of card artworks. So we got this sort of less violent, no guns pointing at the camera. And of course the versions that had the sort of the 1990s series, but with their missile firing accessories as opposed to their original accessories. So and I've always liked Euro Range Viper, for instance, than the United States Range Viper, because it's more faithful to the action figure.
This sounds like a couple of episodes to me. Like this could be.
Oh my word!
You could have a card art battle that focuses on repaints. You could have a card art battle that focuses on, foreign variations. You could have that thing that Paul was talking about, the kind of like the oddball kind of stuff that doesn't really fit in any of those kind of categories, like Street Fighter 2, which would be a US release as well and quite standard, but doesn't necessarily fit into the the vintage Joe thing, even though it does. It hasn't in kind of like in your work in this arena. So I think there could be a few episodes to kind of do here.
Well, we most likely will call upon you, Chris, because we need a prime number. Can't get by on 4 people.
I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, man, here we go. But I think it's time we close off this show. It has been an epic episode, and I'm no doubt an epic edit for my man McLeod. So let's cut it off now. Guys, thanks for joining us. Oh my word. I mean, if you didn't love this stuff before, hopefully you've gathered a little bit more of an appreciation for it now, because everybody knows no one's ever going to take their figures off their card ever again when it comes to the Figures of Truth service. So yeah, you're always going to be staring at that card artwork. My name's Steve. Peace.
Full force.
Yo, Joburg.